Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. We'll start today and ask if there's any public comment from the board.
Okay. I do have a public comment. Not just the Lunenburg schools, but the whole Lunenburg community got really difficult news today. Yesterday, Denise Galloway, who was the secretary at the primary school in Lunenburg, unexpectedly and suddenly passed away. And so anybody with children in the school, we got a robocall similar to a snow day, except it was a 2-hour delay because they had to cope with getting the day ready. In her absence. She was retiring this year, even though there was 4.5 days of school left in the primary school. She was going to stay through to mid-July to help with the transition of a new principal. And in any organization, there's always a glue. It could be the CEO, and it could be anybody in between. And everybody was fearing the loss of her for her retirement, because they were losing their glue to that, but so excited that she'd go off and enjoy her granddaughter and reap the rewards of a really fabulous life. There is nobody who wasn't touched by her, and everybody had their own connection with her, and she was the gatekeeper of the school. She buzzed you in, but once you got in, you felt like you belonged. And so I think everybody from that school and anybody who's been through that school has had a really challenging day, because it was kindergarten field day. It's one of the happiest days in the building. And so everybody brought it together, and it was sort of like a show must go on kind of day, but my heart goes out to her family and to all the staff that, you know, was really on their game today and really being the incredible people that they are. These moments are when you see that sometimes we sweat the small stuff, and you know, when something can change so suddenly. So it was a tough day in town for a lot of people, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I think that's weighing on the hearts and minds of a lot of people. And she was well loved, and I guess that's it for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. How very sad.
Yeah, she was an incredible person. I mean, the loss of anybody, but she's the glue type, the sunshine in the building. And we were losing her to retirement, and now we lost her in life. So.
Do you know how long she worked there?
She was with the Lunenburg School System over 30 years as a secretary there. I mean, 2005 since that building's been open, but she did other things in the school system, and lived in town as well, and had 2 sons go through the school system. So, you know, she just was threaded in town in a lot of ways. So, yeah. So, sorry for the loss.
Any other comments from the board?
Well, I wanted to announce the pancake breakfast is tomorrow morning from 8 to 10:30 at the senior center, $2, all you can eat.
I just have one announcement. I want to thank everybody from the Lunenburg Arts Council, Cultural Council, who put on the Arts Festival on Saturday. It was an absolutely beautiful day, and there were an incredible number of booths and different displays, both performing arts and crafts and food, and it really was a great community event. And I want to thank everybody from the council who put that on, and everybody who participated, either providing support or being a vendor or attending. So again, it was a really good moment for the town.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, you triggered a second comment thought that tomorrow
You get a
night-
second chance. Go ahead.
Tomorrow night is the classic car show.
Yes, cruise
the
night.
culture-
Cruise night is tomorrow,
And
yes.
So I think that'd probably come up at some point, but since we're talking about that
Nope.
event, I know this is their 4th annual?
Third,
Okay,
yeah,
we're
third,
heading in
yeah.
that direction, and it's a
4 to
nice
8.
event, and that's tomorrow starting at?
4 to 8 on Memorial Drive.
And the Lions is providing food for that as well, and I think they might have 1 or 2 food trucks as well.
Excellent. Any public comment from the public? Madam? You get to join us. It's
That's odd.
it's fireside chats with the selectmen tonight. But you have to talk into the microphone for the people at home.
I'll talk. So I have two things. The first one is, I want a clarification from the board of when is public comments welcome. And I think the question comes because you guys are always so welcoming on hearing, feedback from the public. And the reason I asked that is because last week there was an appointment, it was under appointments, but I think it was discussion, special event permit discussion. And when I saw that in the agenda, I assumed it was going to be a discussion within the board. But it turned out you guys accepted comments from the public. And if I knew that was going to be accepted, I would have maybe considered not doing what I had planned to do and come. So if, I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's okay to open for questions, but I think opening board discussions to comments disfranchise the people that just thought you guys were discussing.
So do you
Okay,
think...
so, hold on a second. So, first, I'm not quite understanding. So, at first, you compliment us by opening it up for time but then you criticize us for opening up comments. So, I'm trying to figure out which one it is.
Well, it's all about consistency, like in satellites you talk about. If the board's going to take public comments on their discussions, that needs to be the rule. So I have come here in previous meetings that it's not always the case that there's a discussion within the board that public comment is made, is allowed. So I just want to know what is the rule for public comments during the public
Okay,
comment.
so there's two...
By the way, I am welcome, how open you all are and how willing you guys are always, so.
Sure. I'm just trying to
Right.
understand how you framed it. So, the official rule is that there's an public comment, official public comment, in the beginning of the meeting, as what you're participating now. There's an official public comment at the end. Any public hearing that we have has a public comment section, and any other public comment is the discretion of the chair. Yes, so you have to, it's not about loud, it's about close to the mic.
Okay,
So any other topic, it's the discretion of the chair.
right. But it just, within the discretion of the chair, I wish there was sort of a standard policy that can be deviated. Because I would like to know when is the public comments are going to be welcome and input. Because if it's only decided here, I won't, the point of having agendas and having to publish so many days in advance is so the public can look at the agenda and decide if they want to join or not. So I think it's an internal policy to maybe, our standard operating procedure will be to, if it's a discussion, maybe we will open for questions because there might be questions. But if I just would like a standard policy so then I will know when to participate or not. Because I assume that I can watch the meeting at home and come to the public comment the next meeting and share my thoughts. Which I'm sure you will.
Well, I don't know, I will speak as one member, I don't know that I'm willing to make something determinate. There's reasons why there's discretion of a chair, so...
I'm not saying take the discretion away, I'm just saying maybe it can be there's a practice that we follow that can be deviated from. But I don't think right now that is a practice of sometimes allowing, sometimes not.
Right.
Okay, so the other thing was, as regards to the special permit discussions last week, one thing I'd like as you all look into this policy and think about it, how to, approach, is that this policy is not about 300 Holman Street. And that's very important to me. It's about the entire town. It's going to affect everybody. And that, it concerns me a little bit on the push that we're having on regulating what. And, I understand Darren's neighbor's concern, and I think Darren may have pushed the envelope a few times, but there are some others that I think, it's just being, it's out of line, some of the neighbors, what the neighbors have done and what they've been doing. And creating a policy that will just empower people to do more of that is concerning. And I wish that we don't do that. So as you are drafting that, remember that, this is a policy for the whole town, for me. And I don't necessarily, if I want to have a Tupperware party in my house, I'm going to have it. So, if Darren wants to have a juice party at his house, I think you should be allowed. It's just when we put some activities within things that we know more and we are more comfortable, some of that stuff started sounding maybe a little ridiculous to be complaining about. And that's my concern. The other concern that I have is, and I think, Tom, you want to create some definitions around some of the discussions, and I think that's great. Because when I was watching the building department inspector, Mr. Rhodes, talk on the zoning boards of appeal a couple weeks ago, he was talking about how he came to the determination to send Darren that cease and desist letter. And he relied heavily on his opinion, on his determination. And one example that he used was, if there's a yard sale, that's not violating any zoning laws. However, if there's a yard sale every weekend, that's violating. Well, was he talking about 52 weekends of the year? Or if you just do 151, therefore is no longer? So I think, even for Mr. Rhodes, it would be helpful if we say, maybe, and I don't think that's necessarily a discussion, but, if someone is having 26 yard sales a year, they're crossing a boundary. So I think, having clear rules, they're not just qualitative, they're quantitative, we can really define what it is. It will be helpful to everyone involved, including the residents that might want to hold an event.
I would say 2 comments on your first comment about the special event policy that we're putting together. Yes, I agree with you that I think everybody on the board recognizes it as for the whole town. As far as your second part about the building commissioner, I would say take that to the planning board and to the ZBA, because this board has nothing to do with zoning, so.
It's an example of
No, I understand.
People can then make decisions based on, that stuff. So I just wanted the rules to be clear. And I think Damon was the one who said, one of the residents should be able to pick it up and read and know if they need a permit or not.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking for.
Yep. And tomorrow is the continuation of that ZBA hearing, if you're interested.
Yes, I'm not sure.
Mr. Weaver, you wanted to speak.
I do. Thank you.
What next?
And this is a great opportunity. Steve Weaver, 288 Coleman Street. This is a great opportunity because the previous speaker didn't want to speak about 300 Coleman Street, but she talked a lot about 300 Coleman Street. So anyways, because of that, just to let you people know what you're dealing with at 300 Coleman. Last Tuesday, I reported that the photo event was canceled at 300, and Helen verified that when she got up and spoke in front of the board. At the end of the week, one of my neighbors got notified that there was going to be a photo event at 300 Holman. Because he was notified on social media with 152 people notified. But it was going to be a private event. And this is after Gary Rhodes had already shut down the other event. So I think you can see, that there's a lot of deception going on here. And that, so Gary Rhodes had to come in on his day off and call Mr. Bowen, and that event got canceled. But it's just an ongoing thing of deception. It's like when they had the Husky Hustle. They were told they couldn't hold the Husky Hustle. So then it was the Husky Hustle party. And then he was told that he couldn't hold a party. So then it was the Husky Hustle non-party. So, it's just grabbing at straws, and that's why everybody's at their wit's end with that. So anyways, thank you to the previous speaker for bringing that up. The reason I came here tonight was last meeting, I brought up about the Montezuma Walk and a plan for more parking at the old primary school and building a park there. I asked Selectman Adams for her input, and she said she was in favor of not conveying the land and that a park was a good idea. She had addressed this in the past, and that it would be nice to have a safe place for band concerts instead of the dangerous gazebo triangle. This is something that has been ongoing for 2 years, and it would be nice to have it as we turn the 300th anniversary. I asked Selectman Luck, and she was not sure about a park without seeing a plan. She said that she did not want to convey the land the same as Selectman Adams. I asked Selectman Jeffries, and he said that he would like to see a plan for all our properties, but thought that the old primary school land should not be conveyed. He said he couldn't imagine anything other than a park and a parking lot at that location. Selectman Adams later that night brought up there should be some formal acknowledgement for recognizing people that serve in the town and pass away. I thought of a way to solve these issues. This is an example.
Thank you.
I've got 4, so you'll have to share. If you look at it,
I'm going to start by saying this already looks like it should be an agenda item. So I'm going to ask you to, you can complete what you're going to say, but
this is all I have right here.
Okay.
Okay. Of what the park, that's the example, I showed you the photo, of what the park should look like where the old primary school is. I thought the 3 walls with names, one should be firefighter and police that serve the town on it. The back wall should be the people who shaped Lunenburg over the last 10 years of service to the town. These people like Marion Benson, Paul Doherty, Bob Eversole, Lance May, school teachers, and many more. It would give husbands, wives, children a place to go to honor their service. The other wall could be supporters who would buy a brick and put their name in it to support the cause. The closest parking spaces could be for handicap, and the entrance to the park would be handicap accessible. I think that there is a split driveway that goes in there now, but if you made that a little wider, then you could flags out there and it would really highlight the front entrance of it. And I think that would be a safe place for children to play and adults to relax and enjoy. This has been a primary school for a lot of years and was a safe location for all our children of Lunenburg through the years.
can you please submit what you just wrote at the end in an email so we can have that to accompany this?
I will.
That'd be great.
I will. But it gave an engineering kind of diagram of what could be there.
Sure.
Instead of that old primary school, because Mrs. Luck and Mr. Jeffries kind of asked for something to see, and Ms. Adams is very supportive of it anyways, too. So, thank you.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'm just surprised you picked up on the fact that like a park's there. But there's one thing that I feel like we could also highlight in these diagrams and maybe put it on an agenda. Is we've also solved the problem that we keep talking about parking, and there's ample parking in the picture. We know that's a need, so thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
I'm Anthony Babenzi from No Loco Pride. So I have prepared a statement, a continuation of last week's statement, only because the last 24 hours of my very hectic, busy life as I'm preparing to go to Providence this weekend to celebrate Pride with the fact that there was a shooting in Providence this Saturday. So I'm going to be on a parade float, going down the street, there was a shooting on. So I'm preparing a lot of business stuff for personal. I take care of my grandmother who's on home hospice. I'm an extremely busy person, which is why other people have been coming to speak on my behalf, as I cannot get here. I live in Worcester, so not always the easiest to get up here all the time. So that said, firstly, I want to reiterate part of my statement read in last week's meeting. We at Norwalk Pride condemn hate in any form. I reaffirm the statement because citizens from Lunenburg felt the need to personally attack and harass me and the Norwalk Pride Committee and organization. I spent 5 hours on the phone with Brown Paper Tickets, Facebook, and GoDaddy because attempts were made at hacking our online tickets, website, and Facebook page from someone in the town of Lunenburg. To say that people who have attacked and harassed us are not bigoted and hateful is absurd. The fact now that they are attacking me and the Pride Committee just proves that they most certainly are. This is a whole bunch of ugly coming from a never-ending parade of ignorance. I have worked for almost 20 years with the LGBTQIA+ community in New England as a whole, not to mention all over the country. I do this work because of the LGBTQIA+ youth I work with who feel like they have no voice and feel like they are not loved or welcomed in any of our communities. I have devoted my time, energy, money, celebrity to the LGBTQIA+ community and will continue to do so till my dying days. I am sad to say that the last 24 hours of hell I have endured has caused me to officially request a hate crimes investigation from the Attorney General's office. I have filed numerous harassment orders and restraining orders against numerous people in the town. Secondly, the 3 small events that have been planned for Holman Street I think were miscommunicated to you guys initially, and I'm here to clarify that. So, Pride is less than 6 weeks away for us. We have 7 events between 2 different towns. We have one town tell us they do not want us. So with that, mind you, my committee is back. I should be running my planning committee meeting, and I am here to make this statement because it is the utmost important to give a voice to people who feel like they don't have one. So I also want to clarify that the events you can read on our website. They're very detailed. They're also on Facebook. They're very detailed. We are not producing a festival in Lunenburg, period. No 500 plus people, no vendors, no food trucks, no porta potties. This is a simple cookout and a brunch, plain and simple. Our festival is the Saturday of that weekend in downtown Fitchburg at Riverfront Park, in which we have numerous state, local, as well as U.S. representatives from Congress coming to speak, including Lori Trahan from Lunenburg. So the events that we are producing in Lunenburg are limited to 100 people. We have really limited them far below what you guys authorize in the entertainment licenses. I only obtained the entertainment licenses as a courtesy because that's what the town required for any event. And that's what was from researching online. You require any event, whether it's public or private, you need an entertainment license if you're having music or entertainment. So I filed the appropriate permit request. I'm sad to say that due to the attacks and harassment on us, I'm afraid that our community is not safe at these events, and I'm almost having to hire security. I'm not in that stage yet, as it's going to cost us hundreds of dollars, and this weekend of events is costing us well into $10,000, with $2,000 already sunk into the Lunenburg events that I cannot recoup. In conclusion, I, Anthony, President of Norwalk Pride, will no longer appear or send any statements to this board or town, as it takes valuable time away from planning the Pride weekend and will potentially damage this year's events already. And it's obviously for people who care and need these events to be full. I just had a call yesterday from a grandmother who took in her 3 grandchildren. One of the grandchildren is a transgender person and is transitioning. She sought my help for resources for her family. And they thanked us profusely, me and my committee's work, for all these events, and they were planning on attending every single one of these events so their grandchild can see there are people in this community that live up here that are exactly like him. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take a quick moment to, as a chair of this board and of the government of Lunenburg at an official and municipal level, to reiterate your very first statement that we too, as an organization, as a governmental organization, do not tolerate hate or bigotry or prejudice or intolerance of any kind. I am sorry that there are members beyond the control, obviously, of this body that engage in activity as you described. It saddens me and it angers me at the same time. So I apologize that we have people who may be engaging in that kind of activity and that you were subject to it. I can say that this board and other members of the appointed and elected officials stand by you in this board granted the license with the conditions given, with no decision about what kind of event it was and who was putting it on, just the event request of the scope of it and what was being done, as you indicated. And it troubles me that in the world, and even in this town, as there are in probably many towns across the Commonwealth and across the country, that there are just people who are that intolerant and are willing to disrupt and at worst threaten other people. So I'm sorry that you've had that experience here. We will do everything in our power to obviously mitigate those, but what people do behind their home, in their homes, behind closed doors, it's really hard for anybody to police. So I don't know what else to say beside that. I hope you do, the zoning issue aside, I hope you can have that event. I'm very supportive of that event. Again, within the confines of whatever case is already before the Zoning Board of Appeals, I hope it can happen. John, I thank you for taking the time to coming before us. Are there any other public comments? Sure.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Mayo, and...
From, address to, please.
38 Otis Street.
Thank you.
I've never been to a Board of Selectmen meeting, so this is new for me. So,
Well, welcome.
thank you. And I've lived here in Lunenburg for 2 years now, and I was very excited to move here with my wife, and we love our neighborhood, and we've loved a lot about this town. And when Nowoko came and was saying, hey, we're going to do, Pride in Fitchburg and in the surrounding area, it was, oh my gosh, that's so exciting, that we have this for ourselves. And then when we found out that things were going to be happening in Lunenburg, in our own town, it was just so exciting, like, wow. Because everything that we had experienced with our town was such a great thing. And then there was this huge backlash that started happening, and I'm online, and I'm on Facebook, obviously, and I'm in the Discussing Lunenburg page, which is like dark and horrible 95% of the time. So much so that most of the people I know who also live in Lunenburg are no longer on that page because they've either been blocked or they just can't even stand to look at it because it's so horrifying to them and like gives them panic attacks and everything. It's terrible. And that is the perception of our town, is what I've heard from so many people who no longer live in Lunenburg or who live in the surrounding area, is that they look at us as these uppity people who just get so upset about stupid things. That we have these little pet projects that like, oh, this is the hill we're gonna die on, and it's 300 Holman is the hill that they want to die on, and that's horrible. That's what our town is known for, is being these kinds of people. And it really bothers me, and it really disappoints me, because I love our town, and I love what our town can be and what it really is. And there's this vocal minority that is being the face of our town, and it horrifies me, because it's not who we are. You know, we're the kind of town that would say, yes, we want to be accepting, we want to be modern, we want to be here in this world and let people know that, you know, that they can be trans, that it's okay to be trans and to be yourself, to come out that way. It's okay for the GSA at the high school and at the middle school for them to live as themselves and not feel like they're going to be crushed, that they're going to commit suicide someday, because that is the fate of most trans youth when they're not accepted. And when our town comes up against something and drags Nowoko Pride into a different issue, you know, if you have an issue with 300 Holman, keep Pride out of it. You know, this is something different, and this is something that's going to support and save lives, literally save lives, because that's what our youth is. And I don't know that everybody understands the importance of that this is life-saving when you can know that your town can be supportive that way. And I'm not, this isn't hyperbole, like this is fact. And I know this for a fact, and I know this from personal experience, how important this is. And I want us to be that kind of a town that says, yes, I want to save youth. I want to save their lives. I want to support them and let them know how important they are as who they are. And that's what this does. So stop to the people who are dragging Pride through this mud. It is not about Pride, and stop making it about them. Let them do what they're going to do, because it's so important. And it's more important than someone having cars driving down their road. A teenager's life is more important than that. And I don't think that the people on Holman that are upset about this understand that. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for your comments, and please don't take discussing Lunenburg as a litmus test for our town, because I've had to leave that group myself too because of the terrible things they say about people and me, and so please accept this for what we say here and not what goes on there.
It is not a public sector page. It is a private page. I know you know that, but for people who may not, even though it has the word Lunenburg in it, there are several pages that have Lunenburg in it. They are not sponsored. The only Lunenburg pages by the town or Town of Lunenburg or the police department, fire department, DPW, these are official ones. And sometimes people could assume that it is official, you know, an official page or representative or moderated by the town. And I know you know it isn't, but some people may not. And social media is, you know, it's just a free-for-all. It's just one giant free-for-all that a lot of wonderful things can happen and a lot of horrible things can happen. And I really wish that there was a way to stop the horrible things and keep the wonderful things. But I don't know that there's necessarily an easy way to do that.
You know, I think you've made a great decision to ignore it. I think you just have to ignore that kind of crap.
Mr. Chair, if I may comment?
Yes.
On this topic. And one thing is separating a couple things here, at least from my perspective, because I can't put myself into other things that have been experienced. That's never possible. But in terms of being accepting and loving, for any reason, I don't have any connection at all in terms of zoning issues that may happen to a property. And if they're being overlapped or connected, I feel very sorry about that, because we've seen the property in question where even just tonight we've heard a dog sledding event, a potential art event. And so everybody currently who's undergoing an attempt to do an event there is undergoing stress on whether or not it can occur. So I hope you can see that as an example that I don't think anybody's looking to target anybody as these topics are discussed, that there's really a zoning issue. Some things are out of each other's controls or hands. Some things are being handled by boards that aren't involved with us and we aren't involved with them, and we're trying to look at that property over, I mean, it came up as in terms of we're trying to make policies to help people plan events and to help have less confusion. And so I hope that anything that happens, whether it's zoning board or here, that I don't see in what anything we've done any connection between lack of acceptance or lack of love and trying to understand the complexity of a zoning issue. And that raises a question, and I don't know the answer to it, if there's enough time for us as a community to seek out a potential alternative location so that we could ensure that there would be the event and that nobody loses that opportunity, even if we can't sort through the zoning. And that's just really raising a question so that if we can find a way or a location to support an event where it's not in jeopardy, where things that we can't control, find a location where we can determine the outcome and we can have confidence that there would be an event. Just, it's just sort of something we can talk about. And like I said, it's actually just more of a question, because I wouldn't want to see an event that is important to people and has such deep meaning lie in the decision of so many other factors. And to me, that's a potential compromise, even just for this year or for this event, if we can. And I don't know who would sit down and work on it, whether it's a request to utilize municipal land, which is something that is possible, so that the event is not associated with other outcomes that are out of our control. So I don't know how people feel about that, or if we could brainstorm a little bit. But anyways, you said, the first thing you said was you were excited about being in Lunenburg, and I think you should feel good about being here. I've spent most of my life here. My kids are here, and I have bad days and good days, but I see a lot of love and acceptance, and so I hope that's the outcome of everything.
I don't have any comments, but I do appreciate the fact that you came here today to express what your perspective is on this. And I think that means a lot. I do appreciate as well, Mr. Babinski, the opportunity we had earlier today to talk about this in a lot more depth than we do have, in this setting right now. So thank you, and continue to keep coming out. I agree that discussing Lunenburg is certainly not a representation of our town. I am not really on social media. I'm not a part of discussing Lunenburg. I really don't know what happens on that forum, but I was in there and I know why I left that forum. So I would just encourage, life outside of this weekend. I was in Pride, and I was at the festival in Boston. And I was with my sister, and it was a big group of us. And I was walking through the crowd, right? And I'm 6'2", pretty big dude, and I can walk through a crowd, no problem. And I think that what happens, and I'll tell you, the story I'm getting to is, we got to a certain point, I turn around and my sister was nowhere to be seen and my niece was nowhere to be seen, because they can't walk through a crowd. That there's these little subconscious decisions or thoughts that we make when we see other people. And we say, oh, that guy is bigger than me, I'm gonna move out of his way, or things like that. Those are little thoughts that happen. And online, it's an equalizer. And so people who maybe wouldn't be as bold to say things to you personally, because personally, if you're talking to someone, you're trying to get to a result. And so you're not just gonna go at them, you're accomplishing something. But people will feel emboldened when they're online, they're behind the screen, and I would just encourage you to not let that damper your day.
Anybody else who hasn't spoken who would like to speak?
On this topic or on public?
Public comment in general.
Public comment.
But I'm going to start getting people short. We would like to get on with the meeting too, so.
I'd like to respond to,
No, this is not a discussion period, right?
a suggestion of where else those events.
If you want to bring it up at the end of the meeting or submit it to us. I'm just trying to get ahead with the meeting, so.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate it, Steve, but if you could do it at the end, do you have a
I
comment?
have public comment separate from the last conversation.
Okay.
The last
Public
one.
comment is public comment, again.
Joanna Bellata, 362 Sunset Lane, Lunenburg, coming on behalf of Lake Shirley Improvement Corporation. I had a whole synopsis typed up, but my printer didn't work, so it's not here, so that relieves some of your pressure. One question I'll just ask that was very important to me. I don't want to know what was discussed in executive session. I understand I can't. I was requesting who was in roll call in executive session.
Of who?
Who were the participants in roll call? Because you have to go into a roll call vote for executive session when you start executive session. So I just want to know who was in that roll call vote.
From the board?
From the whole executive session. There was conservation and the Board of Selectmen, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking for that roll call.
Do we, well, I can say, do we have, yeah, so.
Yeah, that's
The
not-
board,
All-
everybody
all
from the
five?
board.
So you didn't,
and-
Mrs. Luck didn't recuse herself?
No, it
Okay.
was just, we didn't vote on anything anyway, it was just a discussion. And I don't think she discussed anything either, by the way. But, and then the members of the Conservation Commission were Mr. Luck, Mr. Dwyer, Mr. Bursch, and Mr. Pease.
So Katie Childs was missing. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No announcements. Current business. Request from the Green Communities, well, it's not a task force anymore, right? Green Communities Committee? The Green Group. Formal request to Unitil for purchase price to convert streetlights to LED. Mr. Blatt.
Hi, folks, how we doing?
Hi.
Dave Platt, Goodrich Street, Green Committee, whatever else. Okay. So we would like, the Green Group met last week, and we discussed and then voted regarding asking the town to approach Unitil about purchasing the streetlights for the intent of using the next grant of green funds to fund converting to LED and saving us all a lot of money. So I have some figures. I think I presented to this board a while ago. No, not this board, but the last board a while ago.
The board.
The board,
Yes.
a while ago, regarding the figures and some of the things. We had a preliminary discussion with Unitil last year. It was somewhere in the tune of,
We have a document from
Okay.
you from April 10th, 2018 of last year.
oof, wow.
Is that,
That's correct?
all right.
Okay, right. So you have the document basically explaining it's about 82 grand.
And there's two options, and you're saying we should go with option 2, I'm guessing.
Yes, that's correct. I don't
Okay.
believe that allowing Unitil to convert, so the big problem with Unitil converting is we end up paying an exorbitant amount for maintenance of these things. It's in the tune of like 10 to 15 times more than it would be for a private contractor.
Well, from what I've seen, the difference between option 1 and 2 is the police detail.
Though that is only for what they propose to us for converting it over.
Right,
That's for them to convert over.
Right.
However, if we purchased and converted ourselves,
right, that's what I'm saying, so that.
that's not option 2. So there was 2 Excel spreadsheets. One of them was explaining if Unitil did it, and it was showing about a 7-year return, and to get our money back and start making money, and then if we did it ourselves, it was a little over a 3-year
We
return.
don't have that, do we?
We don't have
These are
this.
the two, the board has the 2 letters, Unitil.
Okay.
Issued
So I had
after
at the
the
time I presented and I had sent in a,
This is what we have, if you'd
I
like to
understand.
refresh them.
Right, that was the letter.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
I have, the other, so I can resend the Excel spreadsheets if you'd like, that I had presented at that
Yeah,
meeting.
because in these 2 scenarios, Unitil retains ownership in both cases.
Right.
That's not 2 scenarios. So the one scenario that they proposed is with a police detail, and the other one is without a police detail.
That's the conversion, that's converting to
That's
LEDs. Then
converting.
we have the letter for purchase.
So the letter for purchase was
That's
just.
the other letter in-
Right, that's.
in Google Drive, the
This,
other letter.
this letter,
The other letter in Google Drive.
right, is showing about
Second one.
81,800 and change to purchase. That's the letter dated April 10th,
Yeah,
2018.
both of them are the same date.
Oh, yes, they are. Okay. The second letter gives you 2 options on it, and that's for Unitil on both options to be owning the lights.
So you're not suggesting that we buy the lights?
No, I am suggesting, so I'm suggesting don't pay attention to the
Very
Unitil
confusing.
letter. Well, that's because you
So-
don't have,
So
for
we
some
don't have
reason,
the-
there's
so
the
these 2 letters are not.
What I had presented in that meeting, and I thought I had sent in, is not in front of you. That's what's confusing right
But
now.
you don't need it for this step in the process. What the Green Communities is asking you to do is to request a informal update of the undepreciated costs of converting the streetlights to LED.
Okay.
That's this first step in the process.
But they supplied that.
But we need an updated one.
No, that's from
This
April
was-
of last year.
Oh.
And that was just a preliminary, that wasn't an official.
Right.
So the official means that we set a line in the sand and says, we will be purchasing over some time, and this is what it's going to cost us. This was just a preliminary estimate.
So you're just looking for this board to basically get those letters updated, the numbers updated?
That-
Or at least one of the line
At this
items?
point, we don't know that we want to purchase them.
No, but this is a
But that's,
step in the
but he's not asking that.
process,
He's
right?
not asking that, so we have
Right,
to.
I'm not. I'm asking,
All right.
I'm asking that we look in, the board approach Unitil about.
If you look at the two letters, both, the letter that has the two options has a line item A that's called undepreciated cost of the existing streetlights. That's what we're asking, that's what the green group is asking us to authorize to get Unitil to give us an update of that, because this one says as of 2/28/2018.
Right, that's line item A, you're saying,
Now,
yes.
is there a GIS map that shows the location of all the streetlights in town?
They claim that there's 335 streetlights in town.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, do we know where they are?
We have not gone ahead and received anything that's of where they are. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, we had received that, probably about, the last time was about 6 years ago. We had seen a list of every light, what size the lights were, and everything of that
We
sort.
get a list of the streetlights, I
Yes.
can answer that. We do get a list of every location of the streetlights, their pole numbers and everything like that. There is no GIS
Okay.
system that I know of, but one of the options, if we were to convert to LED lights and purchase the lights, that software is available as far as having a remote system to
All right.
track the lights.
Because, I mean, the first thing we need to do is decide, do we, some of them are 50 watts, some of them are 400 watts, I mean,
Okay, let's, again, just to keep up to our, they're asking us for one thing tonight.
So I'm asking one thing is to proceed to, in requesting that Unitil gives us a price for the lights.
Basically give us a refreshed price,
For the-
other than the one from last April.
That's
Sure. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we would request from Unitil an updated price for this project.
I'd second that.
Any further discussion about the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Okay, thank you.
There will be time, Mrs. Luck, to ask
Right.
all the details about the wattage of the lights and everything.
And can I make one comment, that those wattage of the lights are based on their location, and based on certain locations, they are, it's mandated that there are certain brightness and a certain type of light. That's what Unitil has installed in the past. So the wattage that figures you see are based on Unitil, what they installed for lights in this town.
And may I ask a green lighting question?
Sure.
Sometimes I see the difference between an LED light and an incandescent in a way that's really alarming, and sometimes you don't pick up on it. Do you know of any communities that have completely converted to LED streetlights so we could drive around and get a feel for it?
Fitchburg, Air,
Okay, so.
okay, the two closest.
So if you're in Fitchburg or Air and you're going around at night, you're
looking
under
at
LED lighting?
lights.
Okay, I
That's
think that
correct.
would be
And-
helpful, 'cause-
And a lot of LED lighting, the differences are going to be in what the color ratio that you do. So LED lights are much more, are more adaptable to different kind of colors, whether you want brightness, warmth, and different things of that sort, where usually an incandescent, you get what you get, and that's it. As well as the incandescents you're looking at, they deteriorate over time a lot sooner.
Yeah, because that would be the one thing for me. I mean, I can't put LED on my Christmas tree because it makes me squint.
And then
And
you-
the
so you need
incandescent
to-
feels
so you
better.
need to do the-
So
you
I'm
need-
like,
you
if
need
I'm
to do
driving
the
around and I feel, so I'll pay attention in Fitchburg and Air and kind of get a feel for it and probably won't notice a difference because I
Exactly.
haven't.
And by the way, that means you need to look for the warm color versus the bright.
Okay,
the bright
and you
light.
can get warm LEDs.
That's correct.
Okay, we're good.
Other questions or anything like that?
I guess the next time you come back, it'd be great to have the right paperwork.
Oh, I have the paperwork, I presented to the board, and like I said, the paperwork, I thought you would have the rest of it, but it was I'm more than happy to come back and do an extensive presentation explaining the two scenarios of whether we purchase and do it, and whether we let Unitil do it. I will give you all the facts and figures.
How long did it take Unitil to respond last time to this?
About a month.
Okay.
A little over
So-
a month. I think it was
So
like-
after you get that, maybe we'll put you on a future agenda just to get
Well-
the new, then you can,
Yeah, after you get that, sure, I'm more than happy to
you
come
come
back.
with samples and everything, yeah.
Oh, I don't know about the sample size, okay. You know, and by the way, you know, there is if you want to do this tide where you have all the, you know, you start to have it where you can look at every single light in this town, that's probably the largest cost you're gonna have. If you just want to convert the lights, the cost is not that much
Right,
to
yeah.
do it. It's a matter of how much technology you want to add to this,
Right.
and what you're gonna actually do with that technology, more than anything else.
Okay.
You know, okay, because, I'm sorry, but remember today, if a light is out at Unitil, until you tell them to change it, you're still paying for it. You're paying for that light for every day it's burnt out, even though, you know, so if there's any of those 335 lights that aren't working,
It's a good gig.
we're still paying for it.
It's a good gig if you can get
As well
it.
as you're paying for their maintenance of that light that they're not doing the maintenance on. Okay.
Neat.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Blatt.
No problem.
All right. Discussion about putting labor council services out to bid. This was discussed 2 meetings ago, and we said we'd put it on an agenda to discuss whether we wanted to do that and why we may want to do that. So I will open it up.
Well, I think that we should put this out to bid every 4 or 5 years anyway. Do you know when the last time we did was?
I do not. I'd have to look back in our records.
Do we have an estimate of how much in our budget goes to labor council?
I would estimate between 25 and 30,000 a year.
Okay. And to the best
But I
of
can get
your
an
knowledge?
exact, if you're looking for a time period, I can,
No, that's, I mean, I'm just
Get
looking
that.
for an estimate.
We just pay hourly now, or?
yes.
Yeah, they're not, right, they're not on retainer like town council. So, have we ever had anything that, through fault of labor council, put us in a bad spot or put us in a bad lawsuit or anything that you know?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Adams?
I think that makes a good point. I mean, one is looking for either cost savings, or I think you had mentioned maybe Mr. Costa's firm could also handle this, but then there is the old adage, don't fix what isn't broken. So if we have something that has been working or hasn't seemed broken, then we might be putting efforts into something and not creating a better product and not really knowing the difference ahead of time.
Do you think it's a lot of work to put it out to bid?
Well, I guess my only thought is, and it was just triggered by what the chairman said, is not whether, sort of what problem are we hoping to solve? One of the only ones would be cost savings. But if we can't really determine that we could get a better value, because it's hourly, I don't know how you could identify future hourly needs. It might fall into a category of don't fix what isn't broken.
Labor council, does labor council represent the town or the employee?
The town.
I really feel that in the recent discussion about the town manager's contract, I don't believe labor council was representing the town. I think it was the town, he was representing the town manager.
Well, I'd have to review, again, I wasn't on the board at the time, and I know of what you're referring, but I don't know the details. I could review the details, I guess. To your question about does it take a lot to do it, if I go back to when we hired Mr. Costa's firm, we had somebody prepare an RFP, so that took time. We distributed it. We got about, I think, 6 or 7 responses that we all had to read. Then we chose 3 finalists or 4 finalists. Then we interviewed them 2 per night, the whole board. So it was a good expenditure of time and effort to do that. And with town council, when you're talking about, $150,000, $200,000 bills, that kind of made sense. And there was also some dissatisfaction at the time. But the reason I bring up the cost of what we're paying and the fact that we don't have any, aside from what you're just insinuating now or implying now about recent history, the amount and the lack of issues we've had with them seems to, for me at least, not fall into something that we're going to see any great savings from, and I don't know that they've misstepped at all. That's
I would agree with that assessment. I don't think, given the amount of money we spend on it, it's not gonna be that much savings hourly. The lawyers' rates are pretty much consistent. And again, I don't think that they've done anything to warrant us leaving their council.
I think we could do better.
Mr. Jeffries, any feeling one way or another? I know you're new to this, so this might be premature.
It is, I mean, I've following what happens on the board prior to me sitting here. I mean, I'm not aware of the conflict with the current Labor Council. I mean, I know that Ms. Luck wanted this to be on the agenda, so I guess my question really is for you. Can you be a little more specific for me, Ms. Luck? Mrs. Luck?
When we were discussing whether the town managers, our evaluation of the town manager could be in open session, the Labor Council kept skirting around the issue, even though in black and white, in the Attorney General's report, it says very simply, yes. And I had to drag it out of them that the answer was yes. So, and we've also had interactions during contract negotiations when last year in a negotiation, Labor Council said, we're going to address this next year. So it was next year, and I said, hey, and it wasn't addressed this next year, and I said, why wasn't this issue addressed this year? And he said, oh, we decided not to bother. So I just feel he's too comfortable.
I don't recall that being the answer. I think during anyone who's been involved with contract negotiations, there's proposals that get accepted or countered or...
he said he didn't bring it up.
I'd have to know the specifics to look back in those discussions to see if it was or was not. I don't recall that.
I just remember him saying, yeah, we decided not to bother.
As for the evaluations being or not being allowed in open session or being required in open session, et cetera, I know one thing that was for sure, because I commented on that at one of the public meetings when I was, not on the board, and I looked it up. So there was a discrepancy between what was published, I believe, on the Attorney General's website and what was published under open meeting law, what was allowed and not allowed, and there was a wording difference that made them in conflict with each other that not this town, but in conjunction, lots of towns brought to their attention. Is that correct? And they eventually did correct it, because if you went to two different places, you got two different answers to that question. And I think he was probably, and I am projecting, because I have not spoken to him about it, that he was taking the more cautious approach of the two in the discrepancy, not hopefully exposing the board to anything.
And what is that answer, Mr. Chair?
What?
What is the answer to that, Mr. Chair?
The answer is, from my understanding, and I will ask town manager to correct me if I'm mistaken, but our old practice of each board member doing their own evaluation, and then after that process is completed, that everybody gets to see as a board each other's, and then the chair would put together the composite, which is what we've been doing for years, is still allowable under open meeting law currently. But that was a discrepancy about whether that was allowed. Now, is that your understanding?
No,
of that?
opposite.
Yeah. What is the opposite?
That individual evaluations are not allowed to be shared because that would be violating open meeting law because they're not public documents, and you'd be sharing each other's opinions outside of an open meeting.
So I'm glad
However, we could do it at a meeting. That's the thing. They were shared not at a meeting.
No, but if you do it at a meeting,
set up
then
enough time in advance, they could be shared at a meeting.
Well, if you share it at a meeting, it has personnel problem issues, because then they're open to everybody. If you mention a document at a public meeting.
And I would be comfortable with my own
Yeah, but maybe the
evaluation
employee
being
wouldn't.
available.
That's the point. It's not, and this gets into something that will be on next week's agenda that we
Yes.
postponed, and that's the town manager's evaluation. Her evaluation by contract is a board evaluation, not individual members of the board. So if individual members of the board's evaluations become public, that is not what the contract states. And so
Perhaps-
therefore, it could be in violation of personnel
the nuance is then maybe we don't do individual evaluations, we give individual input, which we bring here for a group evaluation.
Yeah, so-
So that'll be when we
That'll
can
be
recraft
discussed
that.
next
You know,
week.
in the Attorney General said that this is an exception to the personnel. The Attorney
My
General
point
makes
is, there was a discrepancy, and I think Labor Council, if I was in his shoes, would be erring on the caution of protecting the town from a possible violation and a possible lawsuit. That's why he probably erred the way he did. He's not here, I can't ask him that question, we certainly could.
But I laid out a procedure, and he said, nope, that won't work. And I said, well, because I didn't have the chair writing up a composite. And I said, well, if we add the composite, does it work? And he said, yeah, that would work. I mean, it just felt like it was pulling teeth to get him to say what was legal according to open meeting law.
Well,
He didn't want to give me the answers.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mrs. Adams?
That's all, you know,
Okay,
that.
I understand.
Unfortunately, I missed the meeting, so I can't, I can't comment to that meeting, or I had a lot of thoughts and questions, and so I really can't evaluate that interaction or that night, and I left with a lot of questions. I think we're going off of this topic and on to town manager evaluation, which we can improve with or without town council. I think we have work to do there, that we learned about on our own. And for that reason, I don't think there's a compelling enough reason right now to make a change, but we always retain that option for the sake of tonight and this topic. I wouldn't have a compelling reason to move forward with changing something without collecting a little bit more evidence that a change was needed, but knowing that as we look at it and keep an open mind, it's always a possibility to revisit. So for that reason, I would make a motion that at this time, we retain current town council and labor council and don't pursue, or don't go through the process to look for somebody new at this time.
Well, I'd second that for the point of discussion, but I'm not saying that we have to change. I'm saying I think it's prudent to examine what's out there. And, you know, we are very happy that we changed town council, and town council has 2 attorneys that do labor council. It might be a nice package to have the current town council do everything. I'm not saying we have to change. I think it would be prudent to consider it.
Any other discussion? There is a motion on the table to not pursue.
Motion to do nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
So not to basically put out an RFP for other labor council. So
Yeah.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
So 4-1. Okay.
Thank you for including that in the agenda.
No, my pleasure. All right, workshop material. So we have the review of the FY19 goals, and then the discussion that kind of go together, I guess, discussion of setting the FY20 goals. So if we want to do the
I feel like we can't have a
infield shift
workshop.
here.
On the end here, I can't really see what's happening.
All right, so if you guys can maybe scoot down, well, I guess we don't have to scoot down a little bit, at least. All right. So everybody should have in their documents
What are we looking at first?
so that's a good question. Does anybody, do we want to go over the town manager goals first, or we want to do the board of selectmen? I think we should do them separately, obviously. It just makes it easier for continuity. Okay, so town manager it is. There we go. I know this is a very vocal group. If somebody had strong opinions, they would have said it, you know? All right, so let's look at the town manager goals for FY19 first and
Should we
review.
look at the status update? Because that's where she put in
There we
red
go.
how she felt she did.
All right. So I have read these, but I'm still playing a little bit of catch-up here, so. Okay, so goal 1, increase public outreach and improve public relations. So, I will offer my take on a goal like this, which is, and the town manager and I had a conversation about this. I mean, to me, this is not really a goal. Like, this is a job description. Like, that's part of her job and part of our job. I mean, we should always be doing that. So to have it as a goal seems to be like telling somebody that you should just do your job.
I agree. It makes evaluations difficult if the goal is something that should always exist.
Right.
And that's why a lot of times, like, I forget how they listed the criteria, but achieved wasn't possible because you can never
Right.
complete, or completion, I think it may have been. Completion's
Right.
not possible if it's something that is, like you said, more of a job descriptor.
And also, it's tough to be measurable unless you have specific jobs in that category to say, I want you to do
You
this
were done
particular thing."
communicating.
That's it.
I think you're right that moving forward, it should be, what you're saying as part of just...
Specific.
No, it's just part of the job description, kind of. But I think when it got on here as a goal, there was a noted deficiency.
Okay.
So it rose to that level. But I think it's leveled off to the point where it can just be...
Well, you bring up a
Normal
good point
business.
that I should say as a disclaimer. I mean, any thoughts I have on this should not be deemed as a criticism of that it was on here already. I'm just saying going forward. So I want to make sure that nobody misconstrues that.
And yet the actions taken do achieve the goal. I mean, lots was done to achieve the goal that you set.
Yeah, and that's why in my goals, I structure action items, because I like concrete structure to measurability of how to achieve those goals. Like, if this action is taken, it's a step towards achieving that goal, because the goal is overarching. It's a kind of a broad concept.
Number 2 was comprehensive infrastructure plan.
I think that should be our goal.
Well, I think it's a shared goal. I think it's really...
Do we have a comprehensive inventory at this point?
In the capital plan?
No.
That was one of the actions.
Inventory of
Action 1 was...
everything.
Like all property, I think we
Right.
talked about land,
Property.
buildings. like
Property
all
and
of it.
vehicles, actually.
Yep, property and vehicles.
We have
do.
already? Mm-hmm. Great, because that's one of the requirements of the MS4 permit, so we can just
Well,
grab
it doesn't talk about, that action doesn't talk about vehicles, it just talks about
Is that available as like a
Buildings,
document that
areas,
can be
roads, and-
sent out, like a file?
I have a Excel file on that.
Yeah, can you put that on the Google Drive?
Mm-hmm.
Make something called like infrastructure or something like that, town infrastructure.
Infrastructure inventory.
So that action was completed, right? Action 1?
Yes.
You continue to address it through budgets and...
So I just have a question. Are we
Yes.
looking at these goals as in respect of carryover to fiscal 20 goals?
To see potentially, I guess,
Okay.
to review at
Okay.
least. I think that's what the review is for, to see if any of these
All right.
should be carried over.
Because we did a review during my evaluation.
Right.
Because my evaluation included
A review of these.
review of my goals.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Okay.
follow the
I'm
agenda.
just trying to get clarification.
Yeah, well, I guess it's short of us going through and reviewing each one and think if it's done. Are there any that you were planning on carrying over?
No, no.
Okay.
In the Google Drive, I have 3 somewhat new goals.
So before we get to that...
One is related to public buildings.
Okay,
but-
so before we get to that, is there anybody on the board who sees any of the FY19 goals that should be brought over?
No, I do think that there will be, goal number 4 about human resources, and there will be more work related to that happening over the course of the year, but I don't know if that rises to the level of being a goal. As a comment, I think 5 goals is too many. In general, I think that the amount of time that you have to really do them, a month before town meeting, you're really gearing up for town meeting, and then the month of May is kind of eaten. And then, as we know, we're already in the middle of June, and we see where we're at. So I think it's kind of unrealistic we got to account for the fact that there's 3 months in the year there where goal work isn't really happening. And with some of these comprehensive things, I think we should limit ourselves to 3.
And she has.
And I have.
No,
Miraculously.
I think we probably want to look at the new goals
Yeah.
moving forward, because a lot of the things we're saying, if we open up her new goals, they're much different, and there are only 3.
Right.
And they're more
And we will-
concrete,
yeah, we're
I think.
just-
And that was something the board members brought up last year, that there were too many.
Yeah.
And I will say that I would also apply your comments to our goals as well. In fact, I think even 3 is too many for us, because I think there's probably one overarching one that we need to address, but we can get there. Okay, so if nobody has anything on here from FY19 that we think we should go forward on, then we should get to what the town manager proposes for the new and upcoming FY20.
All right. So goal number 1, I propose develop and implement steps towards redevelopment, reuse of 925 Mass Ave, which is the old gas station. And the objective to address a blighted property that has been in tax title for over a decade. Actions would include working with town council and the tax title attorney to gain a right of entry through the tax title process in order to conduct environmental assessments, and explore funding resources for Phase 1 environmental site assessment, and based on securing a funding mechanism, hire an environmental consultant to perform the Phase 1 site assessment, and that is estimated to take about 3 months of time. Once that's completed, and during that process, explore funding for Phase 2 site assessment costs, and based on securing funding in completion of the Phase 1 assessment, hire an environmental consultant to perform the Phase 2. So these are 2 required steps in the process for that property.
Are those the only, just outside of the form of goals, what is the end game? So after we do Phase 2, what would come next?
To get that property to be redeveloped.
Okay, so there's no, this is the end of the DEP, or the environmental study, the 2 phases, and then we'd be ready depending on what those results
If there's
are.
required cleanup costs, how that's going to be paid for. So it's working with Mass Development to see what funding options are available, if there would be payback, if, say, the property was sold eventually, if we would be required from a portion of the sale to pay back a part of the cost that they funded upfront for the property, which would still get the property back on the tax rolls and a viable property again.
I think it's a great plan. The only thing that I would adjust is the measure of success, where you have completion of Phase 1 ESA and commencement with Phase 2 ESA. Instead of commencement of Phase 2, maybe a draft plan for Phase 2.
Draft plan, meaning?
So Phase 2 is looking for exploring the funding resources, right? And what, and I think that maybe commencement of that, what does that look like in your work?
So commencement, so the Phase 1 work is not as extensive for an environmental consultant to come in and perform that assessment, but a Phase 2 is more extensive, so that's why it takes a longer period of time to complete, and that's why I said commencement with Phase 2.
Okay.
So it's not going to be completed by the end of, next year,
not.
given the time frame that we have.
So you're already shirking your goals, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying,
I didn't even get
I know
that.
I can. I love a goal like this because it's one specific problem.
Yep.
And if for anybody who was here as long as I've been, they remember when Mr. Kelly owned it, and he always had a whistle, and you'd hear his tune when you pulled up for gas, and it was a lovely spot and a good memory. And now it's one of those things. I've done this example a couple years ago with a lot of our center of town is my laundry pile in my house. I don't see it. I go right past it because it's built into my level of acceptance. First thing somebody's going to notice if they went upstairs was, oh, the hamper's overflowing. Wow. And so I've used that example because we have become so comfortable with the dilapidated, ugly parcels that we drive past that they're our laundry pile. But somebody else coming through Lunenburg is going to be like, whoa. And that's one of the properties, and it's complex because it's privately owned, and it's neat to have a goal to try to get that better. But I think it also brings to mind, and I think it'll come up in further discussion, is that we're critical of a private owner of a horrendous property, and we are municipal owners of some horrendous properties, and that is even more our responsibility. So my only comment would be, I'd like, not that it makes any difference, but just symbolically, this goal to be lower down than a goal number 1 if there was any purpose of you putting them in an order, in that this is private property. I'm, as a selectman, more ashamed of our dilapidated municipal properties than I am of any private property. But I think it's an awesome goal.
Yeah. I think that if you see her other goals, then what you're talking about really isn't on her list, and I think Mr. Jeffries indicated, as I would too, that I think it should be on our list to do the second part. I mean, we're going to need the town manager's assistance, but really the driving force between what you're asking, and I think a lot of us probably want, is the Board of Selectmen, not the town manager. This one is, her first goal here, this really is the town manager acting with town council and DEP and whoever we need to get to here, so I think that's why it's, and I don't think, and by the way, I don't think that, for me at least, the goal order is not relevant. I think they're all important, because if we're going to limit it to 3, I'm going to expect all 3 to be completed.
And I would, I previously noted a change to the measure of success, but I think I misread the third action, and I think the third action is really clear on what the commencement with Phase 2 means. So I think this is a great goal.
Cool. Well, if you like the first one, you're going to love the second one, because it has all the good qualities of the first one.
All right. I'm passionate about all 3. Yep.
Sorry, I took
And just
some of
going
your
back to
thunder there.
925 Mass Ave, when I first interviewed for the position here, and I came to visit the town, that property was something that stuck out to me when I drove around town. That I was like, it would be great to, see that come back to life, because it's right in the center of town. And
It's our laundry pile.
Yeah.
It's a great goal, it really is. When I was visiting our son in Denver, we went to a brew pub that was a converted gas station.
There you go.
Perfect.
And we need more municipal parking before we get that pub up and running. Because there's not a lot of land.
Or you have assigned times where you can go to the pub.
Yeah.
Everybody's got dibs on the old gas station already. Okay, goal number 2.
All right. Implementation of recycling contamination enforcement program. So the objective is to educate residents on what materials are recyclable and what materials are not recyclable, and improve the quality of the town's recycling. By increasing the quantity and quality of the town's recycling, this will save on disposal fees and ensure sustainability of the recycling program. So the action would be to work with the DEP Regional Recycling Coordinator, Casella, and the DPW to conduct all the steps in the Recycling IQ Kit Grant in an effort to reduce contamination and recycling. This includes educational mailings, signboards, hiring staff to perform curbside checks, and data tracking. And the measure of success would be at the completion of the process, we will request another contamination audit from Casella and compare these results from the contamination audit we received in December of 2018.
I think you should probably, okay, and compare results from.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. I would say that I would like, I don't know how the board feels, I would like to see at least one public hearing or public seminar on that, added to that list of, so educational manuals are great, signboards, it would be nice to have at least one public meeting where somebody can go over and answer questions that people may have.
Yeah, you know how you showed me where the recyclopedia
Yes.
is? Where is that? I couldn't find it. It tells you, you just put in stuff that you want to recycle.
It should be right up on our website, on the DPW's page. You can access it through there.
And actually, when I was at Home Depot the other day, you can return all your plant pots there.
Good to know.
I know, I went, yes!
What do you mean, the plastic ones or the clay ones or all of them?
Because the plastic ones you're not supposed to recycle, and that you buy plants in, but they have shelves, so you just bring them and put them up on your shelves. I don't know what they do with them, but I don't care. And another piece to reduce the amount of trash we have hauled out would be to focus a little more on composting. Composting really helps that, and we have those great compost bins to sell.
Yeah, I have one.
So maybe we could.
But the goal of this is not to reduce trash, it's to reduce recycling contamination. So it's very, very specific what the goal is here. That means people are throwing in pizza boxes and stuff that has food in it and...
Yes. But I think we're also trying to save on disposal fees.
That's a side effect of
when you recycle better.
recycling. We can look, as a side issue, we can look into composting. I've talked to
city compost, and have, someone from the Agricultural Commission had asked about that because of the farmer's market, so it passed along that information to them as well. But they're a pay, you pay for that service. So there are certain residents in town that pay for that service already to have a farm come
we're
out.
kind of a rural community. You can compost, buy a compost bin and compost at home. So, I know it's not part of this goal, but I just think it's another way to reduce disposal costs.
No, when I was a child here, they had those lovely little circle trash cans right by the road with a pedal that you put up, and there was, I think, like a pig farmer, somebody that came to pick up your material that you put in that little container, and it was no longer service that was available, but it was right by my bus stop, and so of course we were always so I don't know if anybody's using those anymore, but they're pretty interesting.
I just have a question here in the action items. What is the DPW's role in conducting the steps in the Recycling IQ Kit grant?
So they'll be involved in the process because they interact daily in the pay-as-you-throw program as far as that office. So if there's, say like today, if there were an issue with the trash pickup, residents call the DPW for that. They're directed to the 800 number through Casella, but we receive complaints through the DPW.
Okay.
So
But they're just directed to call Casella, right? So there's really no point in calling
yeah,
DPW.
but if it needs further resolution, they get involved at that
It's like
in that as
documenting
well.
it through the town.
Yeah.
Because,
they just tell you to call Casella. They don't document it.
okay. I think it's a good goal to have something environmental. I mean, everybody feels good about environmental improvement, and I've learned about my own recycling mistakes through these meetings, in terms of things I was putting in that I shouldn't have been putting in. And so environmental awareness is, I think, a good thing. So.
And I think if we don't do this, if we don't get ahead of this, as they do more of the oopses and people leave their recyclables, I think what we don't want to have people do is just say, you know what, forget about recycling. I'm just going to throw out everything. It's just not worth it. We don't want them to do that either, so.
And you don't want them to just dump it on some out-of-the-way piece of land.
I used to recycle my single-use plastic bags, and now I can no longer acquire them. So.
That's right. There you go.
So recycling's cleaner already.
Another thing that the DPW does is they sell the compost bins and rain barrels.
That's right.
Now, I purchased, and this is something I should probably ask DPW, but I purchased one of those compost bins, and somehow this winter, some little critter broke the little grates out, and now it's pulling things out of the compost bin. I thought those were like the hardiest plastic I've ever seen, so.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So maybe there's like some patchwork.
Yeah, something to look into.
They do resell them.
I
You get another one.
I could just go buy another one, I know.
And then recycle them.
And recycle the other one, exactly. Okay, goal number 3.
Identify, plan, and implement accessibility.
Thank you.
Improvements. To improve access to public buildings, public properties, and roadways. And the action item would be work with Montechusett Regional Planning Commission and various stakeholders on completing the updated ADA self-evaluation and apply for the Mass Office on Disability Planning Grant to complete the ADA transition plan. Second action, review the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan with the board and apply for the Complete Streets Grant in the fall that aligns with the goal of Complete Streets to provide safety and accessibility for all users of roadways, trails, and transit systems to people of all ages and abilities. In action 3, identify and complete accessibility projects at public buildings and other town properties that can be paid with the funds appropriated at the annual town meeting for the fiscal 20 for town facilities.
I think I don't see it listed here, but one of the things I would say is since we have an ADA committee in town, I would say you want to work in conjunction with
Yeah,
them. or did I
various
miss it?
stakeholders are covered under that.
Oh, sorry. They were
Kinda covered,
various
yeah.
stakeholders. Okay. Well, we got some good information, of course, from the walkability study that happened a couple of weeks ago, and we had somebody who I was so glad that who attended, her whole family attended, but she gave some good insight even about, handicap parking right in front of our own building and where it is, because where it is like the worst possible spot, and it should be moved up a spot, because then the pavement is level, and person can get out of their car and not have to worry about uneven bricks. So just looking at it from somebody else's eyes, and I thought it was so helpful, and I thank them so much that they gave a lot of good input, but that was particular to this goal, so.
Yeah, she and her family are an asset to the process, and I think they'll remain involved. And I remember last year, they came to a meeting, and there was a chair right outside the lift, that had kind of like it is now, but even closer, and just watching a process of an inaccessible building. And, it came up earlier when we talk about the gazebo. If there's no parking, then there's no ADA parking. And, and so we have things like that. And I know I'm a bit of a broken record on these topics, but as a mother of 4 young kids, whether it's a stroller or a wheelchair, or if it's somebody who has a walker for disability, or somebody who's elderly who has accessibility issues, when you approach something like a band concert, there's no parking, there's no level sidewalks, there's no crosswalks. We have such opportunity for improvement of these things, and I agree with Mr. Alonso that to have people where we can use their perspective in their eyes will really help us, because if we think, we talk about going from building to building, you cannot get from Ritter to Town Hall. Maybe that's why it feels so stressful, because there's really not a sidewalk. You get into this beautiful garden, and you have to trample through it or go a roundabout way. And so maybe everything feels disconnected because it is, and I think it's going to be really exciting to look at simple things like one sidewalk cut through a space could make places feel easier to access. So I like this goal.
And I also hope that we're able to focus on the town beach.
Thank you.
Making that safer. When we talked about doing the walkability study, and they said, well, you gotta wait till it's safer. And I go, I don't think so.
We didn't walk in Whalum because it was too dangerous to walk as a group. I thought that was a bad, answer. Thank you for bringing that up, because the town beach is a dangerous location. I go there for a couple weeks a summer. I don't spend the whole summer because I have access to lake at my parents', but I love the 2 weeks I spend there. And in the last couple of years, I've seen 2 accidents where a car swiped a car. So it's not just like a hypothetical, it's kind of dangerous. People around Prospect Street, you don't see what's coming, and it's one car swiping another. But usually there's kids unloading from those cars, so it's just a moment in time, and somebody could swipe a person.
Are we putting speed bumps down there this summer?
That's part of what, I think signage, painting, there's no painted parking or awareness that there's parking. It's just sort of like a free-for-all, and I think signage, painting, sidewalks, one of the Complete Streets projects could look at bringing sidewalks from where you have the Rotary, where there's so much density there, and so there is so much room for improvement there, and based on the density, looking at projects there, I think might be more appealing to the state to fund than even projects here, based on how many people would benefit from it.
Well, I think it's kind of funny, because people on Facebook and around town, when they talk about stuff, they talk about power grabs of companies. I'll tell you that, what, as a selectman and as chair for many years, I lobbied heavily, just to get a crosswalk at one location at the Whalum Rotary, and was unable to do it. I couldn't believe that we as town couldn't come up with a way to paint a line from one side of the street to the other, so people and drivers knew where they should cross.
Yeah.
And so everybody if you cross at that Rotary, really, you got to be in the middle of a prayer.
Right, because it's hard to just drive through a Rotary, let alone be a pedestrian in one.
Right.
Yeah, I believe the same is true for the center of town too, at least for Main Street and near the teen center. A lot can be done with just painting.
Yeah.
parking spaces.
So we
and
need some
crosswalks.
spray paint and some masks, and we'll get out
That's right.
there at night.
I know that there was a plan approved to.
The Robin Hood
to
painted
develop the
signs.
property across the street from there, and part of that plan included adding in parking specifically. Yeah, I think that was one of their concessions, as I recall. I believe I voted for this.
For what location?
Yeah, right across from the current town beach, and that they're going to do a development over there, and part of that was to add street parking up the road for the town beach to help remedy some of this. But I will say, as you know, as a young man, I don't do this anymore, but as a very young man, I was more reckless, and I would drive really fast. And that was one of the roads I would definitely speed down. And I don't think I ever paid much attention to the fact that there was a beach over there.
Yeah.
And, you know, luckily that was, you know, hopefully 20 years ago now. But I would just encourage that maybe there should be some kind of, a little more signage in that area.
A lot of it, I mean, we just need to look at that whole thing. I know when the library used to have their cardboard boat race, it was a complete zoo. Complete, well, yeah, but it was a complete zoo. I mean, I was amazed that there was any traffic that got through, or that more things didn't happen, because people were parking at the fence. They had to unload their boats, which were on top of their car, in their car. It was really kind of nutty,
And
so.
at the ADA transitions meeting that we
Yes.
both attended in Leominster, there was somebody there speaking of a beach, and I can't remember, but it was a beach that had undergone ADA compliance, so there was accessible portions and assistance, and then it immediately made me think of our town beach. There's no access point where a wheelchair or anything rolling can enter the beach, and there could be an opportunity. I mean, the beach has its own complications, and it's a very old structure, but there could be an opportunity for a gate, platform, ramp to get out to the beach, like an alternative entrance to get to the beach. And so that's something I think we could probably do, is look at the overall accessibility of somebody. Even, like I said, years of my life with strollers, you can create a lot of safety if you can capture some of your children in a stroller. Town beach, no. You know, you can't get out there, you can't get in there, and so.
And I think, you know, some of these things aren't big money, you know, paint, you know. You know, just some thoughtful planning. I think we could make
like a crosswalk committee.
And not only that, as I said at the end of the walkability study, I mean, we're not going to be able to take a whole chunk of money and do it all in 1 year. But if you had a plan, you say, you know what, this year we're going to address this year we're going to address this, and instead of letting time go by waiting for you to save up for the big project, you don't have to do it like that. You can do it in the continuous small projects, and over 5 years you'll be amazed at how much can get done.
And in that walkability session, some people talked about making Memorial Drive one way.
Yeah.
But before you spend money doing that, try it out. You could, you know, make it one way for a certain amount of time without spending hardly anything, you know, and just see what are the problems with it. Does it work? Should we pursue it? And even the idea about, you know, taking that land on the gazebo on Leominster Road and creating the gazebo area, making the gazebo area larger. You could do that with just putting, you know, sawhorses at either end and get rid of that road for a short while and say, well, God, this is a mess, it's too complicated, it's not even worth thinking about. We can try different, you know, like Roosevelt in the New Deal. He tried one thing, if it worked, he kept going, if it didn't, he threw it out. We should be willing to try more things with a little bit of money.
Yep. Well, closing roads is a lot more than just a little thing, but all the other things you said, I agree.
I'm not saying, you know, indefinitely, but just try it out.
Do we need to take action to accept the goals, or do we just
Yeah, I think-
acknowledge that?
Well, first of all, is there anybody else who has anything they want to add to any of these?
Goal number 3, I would assume that the measure of success is improved
Oh,
accessibility.
yeah, there's no measure of success.
Right, and add that.
But I don't want to put
Good
words
point.
in your mouth. Was that the
Measure of success, do action 1, 2, and 3. There you go.
Right, essentially.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of like you said, it's going to have to be a plan, because they can be able to like come up with a plan, fund it, and complete it all in 1 year.
Right.
No, but you can get something done.
Well, most of these things, if we had a plan and we said, that's the plan, now we go work on funding the plan, that would be nice, just to get somewhere. Anybody have any additional goals that they came with that they're like, want to add to this list?
No.
Then I would entertain a motion about the goals that are currently draft manager, town manager goals as presented.
I move we accept the town manager's goals as presented with the minor adjustments mentioned.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think all I'd say is they're neat goals, because if at the next year's meeting, we're talking about the positive outcome for like 925, and then we'll really feel like we're getting somewhere.
Right, and they're really specific, which I really like. And I'm in favor of them all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No, it is unanimous. All right. Now,
For our goals.
God willing, we have the same success with our goals.
I don't think we will.
Wow.
No.
Don't be a naysayer. All right, so Board of Selectmen fiscal year 19 goals, we should look at those.
I think that, may I start
Please.
some input here? So I put a little bit of thought into this, and I think that we should, my opinion is, I'd like for us to work on 3 things. The first is this comprehensive strategic infrastructure plan, and I think that is a really time-consuming, serious goal, and I think it's going to take us a while to work through this. So I would say as one big goal that should be the objective, that when we go to town meeting next year, that we present this plan. The second thing is, as a side thing, I think that we should begin the preliminary steps of figuring out how to get solar onto our old dump. This could provide a steady stream of revenue for the town that will help supplement our needs and will, in my opinion, help reduce our current trend of hitting up the taxpayers.
Don't interrupt you, but didn't somebody study that at one point? I thought there was...
A private organization did.
Yeah, I thought there's some limitations to what the grid could take on there, or there was a reason?
Well, yeah, what you have to do to put a solar farm there is you got to get 3-phase, and so it depends on where you put it, where you have to run the 3-phase from, and that...
And if the system is saturated or not yet.
That's right, so that's a system infrastructure goal that Unitil has that we have no control over.
Exactly.
Can it
Take on more.
Can it take on more, right, exactly. Is there capacity, is what I'm saying. But secondly was the location of the farm, the further, running 3-phase on poles and over lines is expensive business. And I know at that time, they came up with an idea of where the private party wanted to put the cap, but where they wanted to put the solar farm was sufficiently away that Unitil was indicating that for them to run it, because they have to run it. The 3-phase, it was going to be like $700,000 or $900,000 of loan just to run the 3-phase, because they had to go, I don't know, quarter of a mile or something.
Okay.
So
I just looking for the history on it, because I know I remembered hearing about it. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think we should, I would suggest just the goal to be to research the plan. Something really simple that I think is attainable.
Okay.
And then the third area is student initiative. I think that we have, we invest a lot into the generation of tomorrow, as we ought to, and I think we have to continue to invest into the generation of tomorrow. But I think we are at a critical point where we really need to turn to the generation of tomorrow and say, we need your help now. We have several boards and committees that need assistance with note-taking, with other things, and I think as a movement of civic engagement and also, helping students learn what their town government does, but also using the skill sets that the students have that a lot of our older people, typically, we know that the folks who can volunteer, who may have the time, may be at a different, age bracket than, let's say, they're not typically in their 20s. So there are many people who volunteer who didn't have a career with computers and aren't as fluent or fluid with them. And that this may be an opportunity for us to, bring students in the loop. I know I've talked to the town clerk, and she's mentioned that she could really use some help, and maybe this could be some kind of internship volunteer thing. But I think maybe we should think about this and develop something to help find a way to get the students engaged in government.
Okay, so that's Mr. Jeffries' 3. Anybody want to go next about what goals they had?
think my main concern is the infrastructure and the center of town and having a comprehensive plan for the spring. So that would be, I mean, big things are moving forward with the building, relocation of town offices and that building study. The other would be finding use for the spaces that we vacate to the extent that's possible, because, I mean, can't attract somebody to use a building unless you can really promise it to them. It's been a hurdle we have to get over for a long time, but places like the old primary school property, we can come up with a plan for, and it's not just come up with a plan for, but come up with real dollar amount impacts of doing multiple things. Like, for that property, we should, number one, we got the approval from town meeting to lease the space. We should put out an RFP to see if anyone's interested, because if we want to tear it down, we're going to have to satisfy the APDC.
We didn't get approval to lease it, I don't believe.
The article failed.
Right.
Yeah, there's no approval for
Right.
that at this time.
The only thing that passed at town meeting was the study for passing.
In the Brooks house to sell just the building
Right.
alone, not the land.
Right.
Not
But
the
was it-
52 acres.
Yeah.
Was it mentioned? I thought we had the authority to lease it anyway.
Under the charter, yep, the town manager has, yeah,
So that's what I was remembering.
to lease.
Because we need to prove to them that there's no viable way to fix it up before they're going to allow us to tear it down. And despite what anyone wants to do, we can't just tear it down without their blessing. So that's one step. The other
Say
one,
rent. I'm just going to correct myself.
I was going to say rent.
Not
yeah.
lease.
Right.
Yeah. Lease has a lot more implications.
sure. Then, another option is we need to get a firmed up price to tear it down and to make a park out of it, or parking, or whatever the idea is. And the other one is get a price to level that needs to be for submission to capital planning to fix it to the demands that the APDC has made.
Which building are you talking about?
The primary.
Primary,
So
okay.
that'd be like 3 things that'll give us indicators of what it's going to cost to do what with it, to help us form the final, whatever presentation we're going to make to the town in the spring. And I think certainly it's a different approach to each individual building, but a similar level of detail of what it's going to cost to tear it down and make a park, what it's going to cost to fix it to the APDC's requirements, and can we find somebody to reuse it and get them to pay to fix it up? Because we can't go in the spring and say we're going to fix up every building, because when we can, well, we need to be able to give the people a number, and they're going to tell us to get lost if we bring that to them, but at least we brought it to them.
And we should also try to move on the Brooks house.
To sell the building, yeah.
Okay, you know what, I'm going to hesitate for a second, because we can get involved in more of the details. Do you have any other, so you agreed with the comprehensive study strategic plan, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any other goals?
No, I mean, I think that one's so critical for the spring.
I don't disagree.
Yes.
That's my only goal.
Can I ask what we're meaning when we say comprehensive? Because it puts me off in a couple different thoughts, and I haven't gone through any of my goal thoughts, but we asked Heather to be highly specific so that it was achievable. And as I'm hearing the word comprehensive versus a lot of things that Damon just said, focusing on old primary is highly specific and I think achievable. And one interesting thing about that piece is that it's currently not in use and not intended to be used in a municipal capacity. So it truly is something, I think, just like the gas station, we could hyper-focus on to have a better outcome and maybe actually achieve it. We've cycled through this concept of, we're going on 2.5 years of using, since I've been involved and maybe before, the idea of comprehensive. And because there's so many costs associated with a comprehensive plan, looking at 3 avenues for one property and actually being able to act on it is an accomplishment. After a year, we can say, we're moving forward with one of our, we're folding the laundry, And so as we
Laundry's
talk.
going to be Going to be a big, big symbolism in this, isn't it?
But I just feel like as we set our goals, we very specifically asked Heather to be specific, make it something you can accomplish in a year. And when I reread our comprehensive goal, and especially because we have differing opinions coming into it and we know that, I think setting a goal where we can agree to look for something to achieve will help us find a little harmony and then like, yay, we did something. If not, I think we'll spin the comprehensive wheel for another decade.
And to rephrase my statement, the goal, the deliverable for me would be to provide a presentation to the town about the relocation of town offices. And to do that, you need to give all the backstory of everything else that's going to happen. I mean, Mr. Rogers shows up many times a year and says he's not going to vote or support and actively go against us if we can't tell him what the plan is. And I don't think he's wrong. I mean, to be able to say, we'd like to move town offices, we have to say what we're going to do, at least a plan. We don't need to accomplish all the action items, but we need to present the people with the dollar figures for the alternatives. If we don't.
Okay, again, I'm gonna back off for a second, because we can really dig into that, and I want to dig into that, but are there any other broad headline goals that anybody had that didn't have to do with the buildings?
Well, I think that this increased alignment of the board with committees appointed, I think we failed miserably at that. I don't think we did a good job with that at all. So I think we should be continuing with that.
I think that
Could I suggest maybe something that stems off of what your discussion next week is, the appointment process? I mean, this is something that's come up the last 3 years, every year, about the appointment process.
I think that's how it get on here as a goal.
Yeah.
And that could be a highly specific, achievable goal, is to go into next appointment process with a process.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, those are B and C are those things about to do with the reappointments.
The goals that the selectmen set are very broad. I like Heather's, 3 highly specific, and that would be something we go into next year saying, hey, we did that.
I can get behind B and C for those, because those are specific. The other ones are just way too nebulous, or they're part of our job anyway.
Right. I could agree with that.
Broadening pool of candidates. Okay, I will, if somebody wants to achieve that as a goal, I will personally challenge somebody.
Right.
Just tell me how we do that, because I've been trying for 14 years in all different ways to try to get I think people volunteer when they have time. If there's a mechanism that you have, besides asking people as they show interest in things, I don't know there's anything concrete we can do.
Right, I agree. But I think that, 3, providing committees and members the tools to be effective. I mean, the guide for members of public boards and commissions, published by the Office of the Inspector General, is great. It's like 12 pages. I believe, especially, when I came to this board, I had worked, I had a career, I did not have time to be involved in public life, and when I came to the board, I was totally overwhelmed. I got up to speed as fast as I could, but I didn't really know what was going on, and I think when we did have that one meeting with board and committee members, people said they needed more help. And, I talked to Attorney Coster about it. He said that, they can have open meeting law training and some other training, but I think we just need to do more to help members of boards and commissions.
So it sounds like you support the student initiative.
There's a disconnect there, because we're going to lose the students to at least 5 years of college or something, and then what % come back to Lunenburg?
No, but I think it'd be ongoing.
I don't know.
It'd be an ongoing, I think,
actually, all of
tool.
us. 3 here.
Good representation.
I mean, I know that whenever we've met with the boards, the land use boards have been asking for a joint meeting of the land use boards for 2 years.
Is that true?
And it hasn't happened yet.
Is that true?
Yes, it is true.
Yeah, I don't think everyone's responded to that coming to the table.
I think one of the big problems is it's a function of time. If you think of like our meeting last week, I think to 11:30, I dismissed myself at 11:06. And last night, planning board met from 5:30 on a site walk till 11 p.m. And so when you try to combine everybody, if they've already put in 1 or 2 nights a week of that quantity of hours, it's very hard to then say, let's all get together on another night. So I think some of it's like a problem that may not be able to be solved. There's so much time.
That's certainly that issue. The other issue is that, you know, why, if you're an elected board like the planning board, I mean, certainly they have the ability to invite us and we have the ability to invite them. If you're talking about boards that we appoint, Conservation Commission or Cable Advisory or, you know, some other things that we appoint, then yeah, then we can have to kind of, you know, assist them because they're not an elected body. But elected bodies, I mean, if they want to meet with us, they can meet with us by asking us to meet with them and vice versa. We can ask to meet with them. I can't believe we can't make that happen unless somebody's particular that everybody on both boards have to be there. Then of course you'll be there with calendars all day trying to do that.
I think improving the appointment process in the way we talked about to engage more each year will naturally create better communication and connectivity every single year between who's currently there and will remain or the candidates that want to come and who stays. And that's an opportunity. If somebody's applying for a position like for conservation and they're coming before us and they're new, they're going to have researched, asked questions prepared like we did for the planning board process. We both went into that highly aware and highly prepared to realize what we were applying for. So I think making a better appointment process will probably naturally lead to more engagement. So that would be a goal where I think we might be able to assess afterwards, did we gain any additional benefit from that process? And communicating will probably be one of them.
And that's B and C of what's there in the current one. So posting both vacancies and reappointments. We should always have a rolling list of who's available.
We did not meet our goal.
No. Well. And that's what happens when you have too many goals anyway. So, especially when they're that broad.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I can get behind reviewing and modifying the reappointment process.
Same here.
Because that.
Yep.
So do we have everybody on that? All right, so I'll just say all. Any other?
And well in advance of.
Oh, no, we're going to do it. We'll do that in the fall.
May, so we have that process.
We'll do it in April.
No, hopefully not. Any other new ones, any large topics?
Yes,
Okay.
large, vague, and maybe we could turn it into something, and I think it has a lot of impact. Looking at our population and population impact studies, I know that recently in the paper, us in Littleton had the largest amount of growth. Well, now that we know that, I like to make a connection between the fact we know our population is increasing and what we need to do to prepare. Like we have the 10-year plan for hiring public safety. Is that enough? Do we need to increase it more based on the fact that that plan is in place with sort of a consistent amount of population? As we continue to spike our population, is one officer enough going to get us to what we already don't have enough of, as one example? Or how is the population impacting the schools? As we talk about town offices or open space, anything in town, I feel like we're missing the link of really understanding our population and growth. So I would like, as a goal, is to understand how Lunenburg's changing and be aware of its impact. And really, my mind is with the schools. Although the school has a school committee and they function as a separate body, it absolutely comes back and has so much to do with town. My daughter's in the kindergarten class, and they're at 6, we've always been at usually 5 teachers per grade. They triggered a 6th, and I think entering 1st grade, they're triggering a 7th teacher. And it may be the new norm. They're waiting to see what happens with kindergarten this year. So knowing we have something like that happening in town and not being aware of the size of our schools, the needs of our schools, those are the most expensive and most critical things that'll happen to us. As we talk about any other town building and town project, some of it will become mandated by the fact if they're triggering 7th teachers, we will run out of classrooms real fast. We kind of already are. They don't. Move-up day is when you get to find out your new teacher, your new location. They're not able to conduct all of their move-up day activities because they can't completely understand where they're going to fit people and how it's going to play out. And so I think we really have to be realistic about when we're setting goals for projects like moving a town hall. Well, if we have situations where we're running out of space in our schools and we have a new population boom that may not be an anomaly but a pattern, I would like us to really look at our population and what sort of priorities we need to set. We may want to have a new town hall, but we may have to have increased school space. And so wants versus needs in terms of population would be a goal of mine. And I think that's I think we kind of owe that to the community to say, okay, we may want a new town hall, but we may need more classroom space. And I know I've been...
So my first comment would be that, while I understand what you're asking, that is exactly why we have a school committee and a school administration to tell us that. I mean, the Board of Selectmen isn't going to be instrumental in telling us what the school population is going to be.
I beg to differ in the sense that my point was, as we work on town projects where a lot of money needs to be allocated, like a new town hall, that if the project is that we need to identify classroom space and we need to identify funding for mandated, teachers, because classrooms are at 30, they're approaching, mid-20s with 6 teachers. And so I think it comes back to us in terms, we're going to present projects at our town meetings where we're asking for funding for things. And I think we need to be really realistic that even if people don't want to fund the schools or don't want to build again or don't want to expand, we may need to. And so I think that brings it into things we are working on. I think we should look at the impact of our population growth and not things that we want to change, but things we may have to change. And I think that does come back to us, because if we're moving forward on a $12 million town hall, but we don't have classroom space, I don't think we're going to get any support on a project like that when we start to become more aware of highly expensive things. And like in 10 years, Turkey Hill fails. I've brought that up for a couple years now. When we talk about comprehensive plans, I think the most expensive and most critical building that we need to understand the future of is Turkey Hill, and yet we don't do it. So in terms of population impact, I guess one of my goals then would be, we're always talking about town hall, which to me, with online bill pay and online permitting, the fact that we could move our meetings someplace else is far less critical than talking about the future of Turkey Hill. And that's a town issue, not just a school issue.
I'd say that for the 30-something, 40% of the town that, hasn't used the school system in 20 years, that they probably would say that they care more about accessibility with getting into and getting out of town hall.
I didn't relate it to accessibility. I
understand
believe
that.
in accessibility.
I think that I hear what you're saying, and I don't wholly disagree with you. I don't know if in 2005, if the town would have invested in a population survey, if it would have had any purpose or value in 2009. So I think that it's really hard to do these things, and I also don't think that this is anything on the Board of Selectmen. I think the planning board has a pretty clear charge about having a master plan. I think the school committee has a lot of people committed to schools. I think I hear what you're saying, Katie. Earlier today, we were asking a question, what should we call each other?
I say call me Katie.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, Katie. I don't disagree with the concern, which is, if we're going to invest all this energy talking about, buildings, that why aren't we thinking about future buildings and future needs? I hear you. I don't know if that's a realistic goal for this fiscal year.
Maybe we should meet with the school committee more regularly.
And we can do that.
Yeah, I was just going to add the overlap that I have in my day-to-day, like during the budget process and the whole, especially this year with the school budget, the superintendent and I discussed a long-term plan, a financial forecast per se, for the school that implements the strategic plan that they have identified. So that's something her and I will be working on integrating into this upcoming fiscal year.
Okay. Do you have an idea of when to present that or bring that?
Same timing as the financial forecast would typically be. So that's the goal of, so that there would be not just a one-year look, but they know what their long-term needs are. We incorporate that into the financial forecast.
And they do have a lot of the data points that you mentioned, as far as we know what developments are approved in town. we know they did studies about the student population and the growth and took all those projects into consideration when they sized the school building. And I think the biggest thing they're having problems with now is a lot of the changing demographics of rentals versus owned. So it's a fluctuating thing each year, an amorphous number that they need to try to nail down. And I would go out on the limb and say some of the younger grade levels being larger than the older ones might be an anomaly and not one that carries through, because
Sometimes it's a bubble.
yeah, the rental properties may be a consistent bubble in that because there's younger families to occupy them, so those kids may not carry all the way through all the grades. It's something that's going to have to be borne out in a study that I think is done by the school committee, not us.
Well, I don't necessarily mean a study, I just, and I don't know how to, it's just like when the Building Reviews Committee topic always says, you know, the study of the 5 buildings, and I would always public comment and say, well, let's include Turkey Hill, and then eventually Vertex did study Turkey Hill and the Eagle House, but when we talk about what we need to work on, that Turkey Hill we know has been said to have about 10 years of viability with really expensive projects like the roof. And at that point, you end up like we were with the high school. Do you remodel the old building where there's hazardous materials, there's compliance issues, technology is difficult to manage, like the new buildings have all the cavities where they can run the technology infrastructure right from room to room. And so Turkey Hill may be such an expensive piece of the puzzle that it gets rebuilt like the high school was, it gets rebuilt like old primary was. And it's so on our radar, and we know it is. I just feel like we're missing the discussion when we talk about the buildings in town and how critical understanding the future needs of the school and the school campus are. I would just like, if we do set up a goal, to include all town buildings in the thought of the school and the school campus in terms of future population needs, because I guess that's just part of my daily living. I see it field day, kindergarten, it's the Olympics. And after 5 groups, I was like, whew, today. And then another group showed up and we're all like, what? Oh, it's group 6. Because we've, you know, with a lot of kids, it's like every year you go through it. And I just was like caught off guard that, oh, we're not done. Yeah, that's the other batch. That's the other 25 kids. And so it just, I feel like we talk about things like town hall, to no end, without realizing that the most expensive and scary things that happen to taxpayers are new schools, and those aren't based on wants, they're based on needs. And I just want to be very aware of anything on our radar, whether it fits what we're hoping to accomplish or not, needs versus wants, and we need to be very aware of this, keep an eye on how our population is changing and how we need to prepare for that.
So again, I fully understand what you're saying, and I would still come back to the same comment that we have a whole elected body that's what their job is. Now, you're saying we focus on the 5 buildings. Yeah, because if we don't focus on the 5 buildings, there's no other body that's going to do that. So when we come up with a project, should at the same time there be needs, I think it's the job of this board, in conjunction with the school committee and probably with other entities as well, to evaluate which one do we think takes priority, and then try to make a case to the townspeople, get their input. But I think that they need to drive what the projects are that are on their horizon, and in their near term and in their long term. We can evaluate them when they submit them. We have to do what we can on our side with the buildings, and then if they come up together, then obviously either the townsfolk are going to agree that we need both, or they're going to agree to do one or the other. But we can evaluate. I think part of the Board of Selectmen at that point is to present to the town both sides and let them choose, or make a case that where we think there may be a preference of one.
And maybe therein lies a goal, is that when we have something to present, we present alternatives. What has gone on with land conveyance or building issues in the past is that we try to come up with one thing to present. And I think maybe a goal is that when we're facing a really big and expensive project like moving the town hall, to show more than one option, and then we accomplish something because we're giving choice. And I think putting all of the eggs in the basket of asking, say, you know, $12, $15 million to renovate TCP as a town hall versus we can do this, or we've researched that. I think our time is better well spent. Somebody asked a specific question at town meeting, what what are the tax implications of doing another alternative? I gave an answer to that resident that the least amount of money you could spend on town hall is zero by using the one we have. You know, I'd want ADA issues, I'd want to move meetings to other locations, but you can say to the townspeople, there's one option where we stay in town hall, we put in a $300,000 elevator and a front door with a push button as an option, or this, because I think when we approach it and say, here's, you know, we could spend 15 million on this school and have a new town hall, it's a yay or nay, and then everything stays the same.
Well, I think that goes back to everybody's goal number one, which is we need to really start deducing amongst ourselves. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen if we don't get control of this amongst the five of us, nothing. And we'll be here another 10 years from now, we'll be doing the same thing.
Well, that's why the highly specific goals for us.
No, I agree. So I'm just saying, so we can go back and flesh out that goal.
So we have one goal of the appointed committee improvement. That's highly specific, and I think there'll be a lot of good outcomes. Would people feel good about setting a highly specific goal of being a little bit more hyper-focused on old primary and trying to come up with a positive outcome?
Nope.
I think, I hear what you're saying, Ms. Adams, but here's my concern. If we focus on, if we attack the primary school, we come with a good resolution there, we start backing ourselves into a corner with what to do everywhere else. And I think that we have to look at all the properties and come up with a good plan for everyone. I mean, I hear what you're saying about these, you know, second things that we can do here. But I mean, to me, this is really bottom line. Would we put kids in this building? Would we have classrooms here in Town Hall? No way. Would we put them in the Ritter building? Absolutely not. In fact, that's why we stopped using it as a library, because part of the reason was that it wasn't safe for kids anymore. But we're putting our employees in these buildings. And that's, to me, that we have to, I have a real problem with how great or not great of an employer we are. I have a, you know, having a business background, I think that there's a lot of value in what happens over the water cooler. You know, having a good work culture where people feel supported, where people feel they can walk across the hallway and ask a question, answer a question, instead of I got to walk across, you know, the street and take 6 minutes or 8 minutes. And now, you know, we have an inefficient government by design, or rather by neglect. And I think that we need to get to a better point. So I'm unmovable from my perspective that we have to consolidate town employees into one location. You know, at some point in the past, we had a town hall that did it all, and now we're using like 3 or 4 buildings to do the same thing. And I think we need to get back to the concept of one building that does all these functions for us. So whether that's at the old primary school location, whether that's at TZ Pasio's, I'm not committed to on any of those locations, but I am committed to one roof.
Okay, I would caution people not to use words like intransable, immovable. These are not helpful things. So especially at this point when we're just setting the goal, like we haven't even discussed the goal.
So we can't achieve it.
Right, exactly.
Nay.
Okay, done.
All right, let's go home. I've got things to do.
So, okay, let's get, I think that we all agree that the comprehensive, I'm just calling it this because this is the way it was introduced. We can change the name of it. But the plan to do something with the buildings is first and foremost.
Paramount.
Okay, would everybody agree with that?
Yes.
I think it's
Just as a topic, not
I think
as a
it's been the
specifics.
same for so long, I would like to reshape it before I would agree to it, because we're just not moving forward on it, and we keep selling it as that product of a comprehensive plan, yet we asked Heather to be highly specific, and we're trying to stay super global.
No, again, we want to drill down into that. That's my goal is to do what Heather did and put actions in there, okay? I'm just saying, do we all agree that's the top priority that we have?
Yes.
Deal with the buildings.
Deal with the buildings.
Yeah, well, I mean, deal with the buildings, but to me, the end goal to me is to be able to give a presentation about moving town hall in the spring.
Okay, that's getting specific, but again, that's overarching. We need to do something with the buildings.
Can I throw
Yeah,
out an
but I think,
idea?
I said that because that's driving my need to come up with the plan for the other buildings.
I don't like to say deal with the buildings, I like to say identify the problems. So when we say deal with buildings, it's like, what's the problem? Well, if the problem is accessibility, we can improve the accessibility of a building by improving the accessibility of that building. So I like to identify the problem, not the building, because the buildings are on land, the land has its own value to the town, and so we're saying deal with buildings. I say identify problem.
I think we've
already done that.
But then once you identify the problem, what is the solution? And so when
That's
we
the
say
dealing part
deal
we're
with
trying to
buildings, no, but a lot of people don't want to see the Ritter and the town hall vacant. We know that. And so there could be a solution where we do town hall on the Ritter campus. It's been studied and things. And so I feel like we're so locked into a previous plan that I think we got to go back to say, what are the problems?
I would agree with you, I don't know if it's an agreement.
Yeah, we'd never want to agree with me.
No.
I'm just teasing.
I share your approach that whatever has been done, okay, with plans at this point, that aren't already in motion. So I'm gonna basically say we're still gonna go ahead with the study of TC Passios because that passed town meeting.
Yes.
But any plan, to me, doesn't exist. I want us to start as a group and look at what the issues are, look at the studies that were done on the condition and the status of the buildings, and start coming, we can't keep going in circles, and that's what I feel before I left the board, and then the 2 years I was off the board, and it's still going around in circles. So it was happening when I was still on it, and I didn't like it then, and now it is, here we are, the primary building's been empty 10 years, and we just can't continue doing that. We have to do something that shows we're progressing. Again, it may not be a comprehensive plan that involves all the buildings. Maybe we boil it down, and this year we're going to come up with 2 things to bring to town meeting. I don't even know what the 2 things are. They're just arbitrary things.
I totally agree with you.
That's all I want to do.
Just like the gas station. We're not asking Heather to look into all abandoned and unsightly buildings around Lunenburg. There's one, and it's a private property. There's probably, a lot of things that fit into that criteria of like, let's try to fix a private property with municipal help. But no, we're doing one. And I just feel like to say at the end of the year, we're moving towards something positive, we have to pick something to focus on, because the problem with a comprehensive plan is we don't agree. Not us, but like the town. I've gone to every workshop and every building related item I could think of. A lot of people say, oh, I'd like to see us stay in the Ritter and Town Hall. And we know that that comes up, and that could be the driving force that's going to say no to a lot of other things. So I would feel really good about picking an item that we can clean up.
I think the overwhelming, the votes at town meeting, I think, to me, what I saw was 64 to 66% of the town in agreement that there wasn't necessarily the 2/3 that was needed to get things to pass. But I think there was an overwhelming majority of the town that wants to move in a certain direction here. And I think that we need to bring it over the finish line. And I'm not, the only thing I'm committed to is with the town hall plan is that we go back to our roots of having a town hall, that we don't have a town hall and then Annex A and Annex B and Annex C. So that's the only thing I'm committed to, but I think that we have to be open in our discussions for where this may lead. Comprehensive to me means that if we are going to build a new town hall, that we have a plan for what to do with this building, or at least some options for what to do with this building. That if we're going to vacate the Ritter building, that we have some options for what we can do there. That's what I mean by comprehensive. And then we go to the town and say, this is our plan for what we would like to do, and then we give them the options for what they want to do with these buildings that we're leaving behind.
So the thing that's going, there are a few basic truths, I think. That, first of all, no matter what plan we come up with, there's going to be people out there who aren't going to agree with it. Of course. Right? So the first dichotomy is, there are 2 different divisions in town meeting that I identified, I think, on town meeting floor. It's like, there are people who say, I can't vote on one building or another because you're not telling me what you're doing with all the buildings. And the other half say, I can't comprehend this number if you tell me what's happening with all the buildings. The number's too big. I can't follow all the steps that are going on. So you're really caught in a bind to begin with. The other obstacle, I believe, from seeing it from being on the inside and then seeing it from the outside the last 2 years, is if this board isn't clear of what it wants to do as a body, the chance of it passing goes down, exponentially. Yep. Because if there's infighting on the board and we don't agree, That's the easiest way to not get something passed. Just show that there's disagreement, and the higher the pitch of the disagreement, the less chance something has of passing. And we want something that we can agree with, that we try to sell and pitch to the public, that's built on good principles, good reasoning, good finances, and say, we have reasoning about why we're doing what we're doing. And we can answer all the questions about if we exclude a building, if we exclude something, if we're doing something that people didn't think about, we were going to do, that we have a reason to explain it. That's what I feel is the best chance of us going
So
forward.
like creating a comprehensive plan with options.
Yeah.
And presenting options, I think then gives everybody empowerment in the process. And there hasn't been a lot of options, and worse than that, there's been no options presented. Like you said, it's been extremely vague. I've studied all three times conveyance, went through very closely, and I remember the November 2016 one where you and Paula made an amendment and you just thought it was too much power for the selectmen. And asking for power without a reason has continued to be what's happened with these articles. Now, I'm borrowing this thought from somebody else, so I won't take credit for it, but what we're not doing, I feel like, in terms of moving forward, is looking at what we know. Well, what we know is the building we don't use, that's in the worst condition, is Old Primary. We know that. You cannot inhabit that one. You cannot use that one right now. That's our only building we cannot use at this point. Every other one we are using in whatever capacity it's in. And 3 times, we have not been able to achieve the ability to convey that. So 3 times the town has answered no selling. So the point of the person I had the discussion with is if the town says, keep that land, keep that building, the likelihood of conveying Ritter, Town Hall, or anything that's actually better and more usable is very low. So that's a piece of data I feel like when we say this could be a that or that could be a this. Well, if you look at the data and the sentiment in town meeting for the worst property is to say, keep.
They also told us not to tear it down, too.
Well, no, but that goes to my point, in that there's a core thing to say, but we haven't presented a plan that says, if we tore it down, here's an option.
I thought we were reading tea leaves here.
No, it's not tea leaves,
I will
it's
say
data
that I
from
was
town
about to say,
meeting.
I think you get into a dangerous area, and they do it nationally, of course, all the time, and it's a state level. I think it's dangerous even at town meeting level to think about why people voted things down and what the messages they're sending. I mean, I think initially, like you mentioned about the one that Paula and I voted against.
The November 2016, Article 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I was very clear that I didn't like giving it to the Board of Selectmen because there was no protection that was underway at the time, but it wasn't adopted with the Village Center and the APDC. The next year, when it came up, I actually did vote for it because there was the protection of not building something that isn't very, very constricting, but what could be built there. So, I mean, there were reasons, and people have their own reasons too. I mean, I don't know that you can say don't keep it. Sometimes it's like, well, I don't know that we want to knock down the building and not do something else. They may agree on a larger plan if it included an end product. So it's really hard to decide, but I do think we should start at the beginning and go through individually, each one of us, say what we think are our highest priorities about what we want to see, and then start to work from there. But I think the key element that I'd like to see in the whole process is that as we do options, as we talk about things, as we get involved with the public, at every step, we have to have some kind of agreement of path forward. So if we have, here's the Chinese menu of options, when we choose one, whichever one gets chosen, that's the one we go with, and we don't start backpedaling and start revisiting, that we all agree, hey, we all presented it, these were the chances people had, for whatever reasons, this is what we voted on to go forward, and we'll just keep moving forward. Because every time we go back, it just doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, we can't rehash things that we don't necessarily, like, I see what you're saying, which is, we're a board, and if I'm in a minority and we pass a vote and it's 3-2, and I happen to lose, but the board says that they want this to go forward, that at that point, as a professional, I need to respect the board that I'm sitting on and move in that direction with the board. Am I translating what you're saying correctly?
Well, to the most part, I don't believe that you have to go out there and be the pitch person.
No, of course not.
But I also don't think you should try to derail it or...
I don't think you should ask a minority opinion to change its opinion. That's dangerous territory.
No, I didn't say
Minority
change your
opinion
opinion.
should be able to retain their opinion and continue to fight for their beliefs.
Well, I agree, but if you get to the point where we're putting a lot of energy into it, if you're fighting that hard against things, then we might as well just, at that point, you could just stop the whole process again, and we're not going to get anywhere. The point is, no one's going to get everything they want. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
From anybody's perspective. Nobody's going to get, hey, this is the plan I put, and it just sailed through and everything's beautiful. I think we're going to need to make compromises, and sometimes we're going to need to make compromises that, okay, I'll do this on this building, but let's do something that I want on this building, and get a consensus among us that this is, whatever the plan is, whatever the scope of the plan, however large, however small, that we can all agree that we can pitch to the townspeople that say it gets us forward in this way, it gets us forward for this amount, and this is why we think we should go forward as a town. Not as a person, not as a board, but as a town.
Because otherwise, we're just going to keep going in circles.
Yeah.
And I think it's harmful when...
Come with us in circles.
I hear what you're saying, Katie, but I think it's harmful when, we're trying to make a board recommendation and,
Sorry, we're not making faces at that. There's a lot of background noise.
Distraction here. No, I think it's harmful when, as a board, that if the board decides something, we shouldn't in ourselves work against the board then, because it's not something that we happen to vote for. I think is what my point here is that, I think that we need to get into this nitty-gritty process of ironing this stuff out, but we need to not work against one another because we don't get 100% of what we want out of this. Like if the decision here is that we're going to have two town hall and annex A, and that's a 3-2 decision or 4-1 decision, okay. I will not fight against that, and we're to try to make that annex A and town hall the best possible town hall and annex A that we can get. That's what I'm saying, that my commitment is to the process.
And I think the way I look at it, if I had to make an analogy, to me it's like a cog railway, right? I don't care how slow the progress is, but we just got to keep notching forward so you don't go back. So if we have to really, really struggle and we push it a few notches forward, fine. But as long as we're pushing in the same direction. Otherwise, if we keep revisiting the same foundation arguments, I think that, we might as well not even have it as a goal.
I think that requires being more open-minded and empathetic towards the fact that things that are part of the past may not be part of the future. I think we overly reference, well, the Building Reuse Committee said X, Y, and Z. Well, they're no longer a group. And they disbanded before I was a selectman. A lot of what I have stood for is, things that are maybe adversarial to the board in terms of this particular topic. And yet, I won the election. So there was enough people that were like, we don't disagree with her. We don't need to always go back, and we go from here to forward. And that's why I say, what are the options? Well, I've talked to a lot of people, including abutters, about the idea of a municipal campus. And that would be highlighting the Ritter building with a potential for an addition, which has slightly been looked at, and it wouldn't touch the Ritter building. There would be a glass atrium, and the secondary part of Town Hall would be where the old fire station was, in that proximity. That could be in conjunction with the picture of the parking lot, the Historical Society, and a park on the back, which I call municipal campus. And I've heavily talked about this with people and looked into it. And so in terms of people who want to keep municipal buildings, there's an option to use the Ritter, the land, have parking. The new piece could be highly accessible and usable. And so there's ways we can address Town Hall in one space and improve parking and parks that are different options. The biggest piece to the TC Passios option is cost, and to any option. But I feel like it would be awesome to say, we've researched these two outcomes and these are their two costs. And then it's sort of like, we'll have an outcome either way, even if it's not our vision. Or maybe the outcome represents a 3-2. But it's not our decision. Whatever we decide needs to go through the town. So if we're here not all in agreement, that represents that the agreement belongs with the people. And presenting options, or at least educating on options, I feel like is something we need to go back and do. I think we've let go of so many. There's an option where you could build a new town hall on the old primary site.
But we can't we can't go that far back this year.
But then you can't go forward if you're
We
not
have,
willing to look.
we got the funding to do the study for the Passios. We can't go back and get funding to do the same level of detail study for every single parcel. Right now, I think we need to do the study for the Passios, find the best possible solutions for all the other buildings in relation to that. If the town votes that down, then I'm ready to throw my hands up and go all the way back to the beginning. But they approved the funding to do that study. We don't have time to get funding, and I think it's irresponsible to get that level of detail study done on multiple buildings. So I think we need to try to make this process, which has been recommended by many consultants, by many different people who have passed through different boards over the years. I think we need to vet this one out this year, and if they say no after that, then sure, we pursue a different avenue, but I think we need to present the best possible plan to make that study feasible.
I think we need to present one plan.
Well, I would agree with, I said that in the beginning of this, is like, things that are in progress, and that was already voted by town meeting, that's gonna go forward. I want to get all us on the same board. I will commit to you that I've read the studies, but I didn't study them, and I didn't memorize them when I was, not on the board the last 2 years. So I'm committed to coming in and, number one, being open-minded about what we can do. Number two, being sensitive to everybody and listening to what everybody's individual priorities are. And I'm willing to moderate that and try in times when it's necessary to keep myself out of it so we can, focus on a topic and address it until we can all agree that, this is what I think could be best, or, again, there's going to be some compromise from people. Not everybody's going to get, if I asked everybody here, what are your top 5 priorities on this? I'm sure they're going to be, maybe some of them will overlap, but I bet you a lot of them wouldn't, and nobody's going to get all 5 of them.
So I don't think we can set up a comprehensive plan until we know the outcome of the vote on whether or not the town would fund the needed funds for the TCP remodel. I think that is such a critical piece. We're gonna come up with information that we don't have yet that's gonna highly shape our ability to know. And so can we even set a goal without knowing that outcome?
Yes.
No, it's, no,
I think we can
just.
address it.
No, I think in terms of putting a lot of time into a topic where we need one critical thing, the outcome of that information. Once we have the outcome from the study of what that would cost, now we can ask, would you fund? If the answer is no, then it doesn't matter what we see. We won't have the funding for that.
We need to be able to give them.
We also, I would caution against doing things serially, because this is going to take a while to do this study, and that means we won't have a goal for a year, and we're just going to let the building sit another. Maybe there are things that don't have to do with that study, like the old primary school. Well, there you go. So maybe, okay, in the essence of time, or keeping time in a factor here, maybe that topic, I'd love to know individually, if people come up with your goals for that, everybody's goals, so that we can discuss it. I don't know if we have time. Do we have room on the July 18th?
Full
the June
agenda.
18th?
Okay, this is throwing this out here. Could our goal to be to come up with a goal?
That's too matrixy to me. The goal is to come up with a goal.
To define that goal more
Well,
concretely.
I'm hearing I think that what would be helpful is we have some hard lines here from what we've already discussed. I think we need to figure out what those hard lines are, what those
Can't have hard lines. I think that is.
Well, no, I think that there are some hard lines. I think you vocalized one, that you don't want to convey land over at the old primary school. That seems to be a pretty hard line from you. I think I vocalized one about having town hall under one roof. I think Damon has already vocalized one about TC Passios going forward. I think that we have to talk about these hard lines and figure out if there's any movement on these hard lines. Because if we have overlapping and conflicting hard lines, then we're going to go into this conversation knowing where we're not going to agree.
That's a good point. Could our goal be to have a better understanding of, well, there we go. I haven't even,
Yes.
I haven't
Go ahead.
even said my.
All right. I would caution against.
Today was a really difficult, long day.
Yep. All right.
I wasn't
All
sure
right.
if I had the energy for this meeting, and when people roll their eyes or make sounds when I'm halfway through a sentence that doesn't even have a purpose yet, it's exhausting.
I hear you, and it's inappropriate, so I would agree. So, go ahead.
My goal is to go home and get a good night's rest.
I think we need to come up with what we each want. We're not going to hash this out tonight.
Yeah.
So I would ask that we go and we think about it ourselves. Don't come up with 10, but don't come through with none either, all right? Think about what you think we should be doing, in addressing the situation that we're in with the buildings and the land on the buildings are on, and what is an achievable goal? Because I think you're right. I think if we just say we're going to deal with all the buildings, we're not going to deal with anything. And if we deal with one building, somebody's going to say, well, why didn't you deal with anything else? So maybe it does come down to one building that we only deal with, but at least we'll have reasons why we won't do the other ones. I just want us to get close to the same page. The problem that I see is that this has gone so long and it has snowballed so big that now it's like you're hoarding, right? So your house is so cluttered that you can't even clean it because you look at it and just the task itself is too immense.
That's why I said instead of buildings, work on problems. One problem is the accessibility of meetings. I've been talking about it for 2.5 years. This is not a good meeting space. So the problem is there's limitations in this meeting environment. The lift, the sidewalk, and then I say, while we come here every Tuesday night, there's vacant collaborative meeting rooms in the $72 million middle high school. And the intent was there to be community space. I've read those minutes when they were preparing to conceptualize the school. Let's have it a community, and they do that with like the weight room and different activities. So every time we meet here, there's empty collaborative rooms at the middle high school with ADA compliant bathrooms, ADA compliant entrances, handicap parking, and we could be there tonight. So that's why I say, can we look at the problems and then find solutions? So in this case, the building is the problem, but the solution may be simply using a building we already have. There's no cost. So when I public commented about this 2 years ago, what they said was, we cannot live broadcast from that room. We have live broadcast from that room since. We did a charter review committee public hearing. I was there as a citizen, and it was live broadcasted from the Lunenburg Middle High School Community Collaborative Room. I was given that as the reason we couldn't go there. So that's why I feel like the goals Heather set and the goals we should set is identify problems and solve them. This is not a good meeting room.
Okay, I think that is on the July,
Yes.
that's on the next meeting,
But
next
could it
week's
be
meeting.
a goal? I mean, you have ADA goals, and so in terms of the buildings, accessibility is a huge goal we're trying to solve. Actually, some of it we have to be legally compliant to try and solve with the ADA transition plans and such. So we can simply be meeting someplace better. Another room that crossed my mind was, I like the large room at the Eagle House, usually not utilized on a Tuesday night. If simply we could live broadcast from there, and we had to do testing with internet speed, that was a limitation to live broadcast from there. And we didn't do that. If we understood the ability to use that room, that could be a meeting space with ADA compliant bathrooms, ADA compliant entrances we already own, free. We can give a better product to the town without spending any money. I like to focus on problems. We sit here and spin our wheel on comprehensive building plan. We stay in the second floor of this antiquated space when we could, right now, every Tuesday be someplace better. So I get frustrated when we don't move forward on identifying a problem and forming the solution. So one of the problems with our town office buildings is the meeting space is not accessible. Well, we can solve that, and we don't. And so we can solve problems with our buildings for free right now by looking at what we already have, rather than trying to create something new.
I think that particular thing, I think we can solve that in meetings. We don't need an overarching goal to do that.
But it's Heather's goal, and I would like to piggyback on our goal to not just talk about problems, but to solve them. That's one problem we have that we could solve by next week.
That's a patch. I mean, I think
And we're discussing it next meeting.
We are discussing it. We are discussing that exact thing. I mean, we can come up to whether what the board feels about it, what the pros and cons of doing that are.
As far as relocating to another meeting space?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we know where I stand.
And so we can talk, we don't want to talk about we don't want to talk about it now if it's on the agenda next week. All I'm saying is that I think that could be addressed in meetings, even maybe successive meetings. The goal of what to do long-term with the buildings is a problem that nobody else except the selectmen can solve. That's my issue.
One point I just want to bring up, the process for the design and engineering, getting construction estimate, like you referred to earlier, that's going to be over the next year. It takes appointing a building committee, them, going out to bid to secure the architect, putting together all the specifications for that. That's a process, and it takes a while to get to. If the goal is to present that at next annual town meeting, which hopefully we can do in that time frame, the surefire way that that's going to fail to get approved further funding for the remodel of that building is that we don't have a plan for this building in the Ritter. That's in my opinion. People are going to say, why would we remodel this? What is going to happen with these two buildings, the ones that we are currently occupying? I agree. I think Old Primary is a priority as well. My focus has really been more on the occupied buildings to make sure that, there's projects are addressed that are need to, that safety issues, that our employees are coming to a safe environment. That's taken priority over the primary school. I still think it's very high up priority list, but we have limited funding to do everything.
So I'm not against your idea of solving problems. I just think that the scope of this goal is by its nature a large problem that encompasses lots of things, not just single things, because there are lots of single things that your item being one of them, which, like, again, we're going to be talking about next week. But I think that what to do with buildings that we already have that are vacant, that are falling down, that
How
are...
about improving parking?
Yeah.
I would love to set that as a goal because...
Well, then, we can put that in there.
As we look to sell, convey, change, we know a problem's parking. We should solve that before.
Then that's what you should put down for that. Then we should put down improving parking under that category. Don't get, I'm just using comprehensive strategic infrastructure because that's how it was introduced. But it can be, we can change the heading.
I think we should.
Address what to do with everybody agrees that we've been talking about 5 buildings and the issues surrounding those, parking being one, accessibility being another. So then let's choose which ones we can address.
But with the 5 building topic, which is exhausting to me because it includes something like Brooks House, which it doesn't include Boys and Girls Club building, it doesn't include the Eagle House. I think when we talk about town center and the buildings, we should always just talk about everything. We're talking about a comprehensive plan of a non-comprehensive amount of things.
I don't know that I understood that.
I don't
Neither do I.
think we can put all of that will be successful if we throw the Eagle House in and the Boys and Girls Club in. I think you just get bogged down. We have to
No, I mean,
Correct, but something very important to point out is the Boys and Girls Club had representation at our daytime meeting where we were looking for input. They're highly interested in utilizing space in TC Passios,
Correct.
which would vacate another building.
Correct.
That's why I said we can't have a comprehensive plan for a non-comprehensive amount of buildings. So as we talk about the implications of maybe brainstorming that Boys and Girls Club could use TCP, we have to look at the big picture that is one of our municipal buildings in town center that would also become vacant. That's why I get frustrated with hyper-focusing on the 5 buildings, because as we shift the uses, there's more than 5 buildings at play.
So again,
that's what I want too. I want a comprehensive plan because I'm sick and tired of people saying I need more information or this is premature. Because we go to town meeting every year and there's always someone who says, where's this piece of information?
Right, Mr. Alonso just said of the 5 buildings. And
well, I'm just saying that's what everybody agrees we've been talking about.
Concept.
I use that as an example of what we as a town have been talking about over the last 3 years at least, if not more. Whether, like you said, if the Boys and Girls Club does become part of Passios and that becomes vacant and that enters into the mix, then we have to address it. So I'm not saying it can't expand. All I'm saying is that we all have to know what pieces are in, and we also have to know that clearly this is not all going to get done in 1 year. So I want identifiable goals about what we should think that we could get done in 1 year?
I've got a goal idea. Nail down who would use TC Pastios if we create it as this. So many different people and items have been said to potentially use that space. As we study what it will cost to use it, I think our goal should be to nail down how we'll use it.
Then you should write that down.
But instead of a comprehensive plan of all the buildings, let's hyper-focus on TCP, because all the people we've said could use it can't use it.
Well, I think we get, just like Heather has separate action items under one heading, I think that would be one action item under that heading. I think there's going to be other ones. I mean, I don't want to have 10, but I don't
Could we
want...
hyper-focus on TCP then?
That's going to have to be part of the process for the architect as well, to the design, because it's going to identify
Could boys and girls, I feel like we have to
spaces.
say what we're using it for. We've been so vague, we won't even know when we say we're ready to use it.
That's going to be the goal of the study.
Well, no, I think she has a point. We could certainly suggest what we believe to be and then guide the architect into how he or she could design it.
I'm just saying, that's exactly what the building committee is going to have to do.
Right, well, we can
weigh in.
Right, exactly. And
I think we
don't-
should have a vision of who's using it
I don't
and
have any
how,
problem.
because otherwise we can't understand the ripple effect of using it the way we don't currently know.
And that's why I think we have this goal of a comprehensive plan, because.
And again, I think that could be one sub-action, just like modeling it after Heather's, that she has one topic and she had sometime had 3 actions. So that could be one. That's what I'm asking people to submit under there. Like, what are the things that you want to address? You mentioned parking, so you could put that down. I'm asking everybody to put, come up with 3. Come up with your top 3 about what you want to do that would be an achievable goal, that has something that has a metric that says, hey, we can hit that. So I'm not good at giving homework, but I think I just...
Concerning town assets, right? Concerning town assets.
Yeah.
Top 3 achievable goals for town center buildings?
Well,
And
I don't know what the summary is. I don't need to put a
Can
summary
we
on. You know what we're
identify what
talking
it
about.
is so we know what we're setting? The homework.
Yeah.
I'm saying, are we looking for the top 3 achievable goals for town center buildings and land?
Yes.
For example,
Yes.
I want a better, safer park for band concerts. Are we in that space?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that involves, I believe, the old primary school, that's where you proposed that several times. So that's one of the goals that you'd like to see, and then we'll, at the end of this, hopefully, we'll have 15 goals, and we'll wheedle down to 3 or 4 at the most, and we'll say, those are the ones we'll do. We'll discuss which ones overlap, if people overlap them, and we'll just come down to those.
Yes, if we all have one goal that's the same, we'll do it.
Yeah,
We
well.
have to.
So, the other one, so the appointment process, I think everybody's fine with, right? So everybody agreed with that? Okay. With the intent of not having too many goals, you mentioned 2 others, solar farm or the student initiative and engagement. I don't know how people feel about either of those 2.
How do you guys feel about?
I'm not big on the solar farm one because I think that, again, we can task somebody to investigate for us. We don't need the board of
Like
selectmen
moving
to do
meeting
it.
locations, you said to
Yeah,
me, I feel like
that
it falls
we
in that
can,
category.
exactly. We can address that during the year, so I'm probably,
I think that's an easy goal to achieve.
yeah, it's so easy you could do it in a meeting or 2.
I'm not
That's my point.
interested- Yeah, and I'm not interested in municipal solar-owned items, so I think we have to identify if that's truly a goal we would all have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why
Okay.
I'm putting it up. So it doesn't sound like you are behind it.
At this time, I think we have enough municipal problems. The solar farm shouldn't be one of
Do
them.
you guys support municipal owned solar farm?
I think it'd be worth vetting out. I'm not sure it's a full year goal.
Yeah.
But I think
Right.
it's certainly something we can address and
Okay.
task to somebody.
Do you support looking into that?
I like the idea of another source of revenue for the town. Yeah. And it sounds like that could be difficult to achieve, but it'd be worth looking into.
So I don't know if it needs to be a goal then.
Okay.
I think since we have majority support, I will look into what the options are here.
Okay.
And at some point in the future, report back to you
There you
guys.
go.
All right, thank you.
Now, the student initiative and engagement, I'm not against doing. I don't know, again, I'm not against doing it on its, in this amorphous, message. I don't know what the steps would be.
I think that's going to come from the school a little bit and as a partnership. I don't know if we can set it as our goal without knowing if they want it to be their goal.
I would probably.
I think it certainly will
I would tend to
require
agree.
coordination with the school committee, with the school department in general, to see in terms of getting this going, but I think the concept is to look into a student initiative to see if there is an opportunity here to create some kind of internship or supportive program within the town, which I think is a goal that we can set.
There's a teacher that has a class that works on
Yeah, and I've
content
met-
like this
and I've met
already.
with her.
Mary
Mary
Foyle.
Foyle.
I've met with Ms. Foyle
It
and
already
we've talked about
exists.
this.
It's civic learning.
Yeah.
I've met with Ms. Foyle and we've talked
Community
about
service
this.
learning.
And, you know, their limits of what they're doing, what I am thinking is much broader. And there isn't much overlap with the support that can be offered to town government or town boards. And so I think, you know, the opportunity here within the initiative is that the legwork of reaching out to the different boards and committees and seeing what the needs are, and then being able to work with Ms. Foyle as an example, or, you know, and with the school committee to see if there is an opportunity to expand an existing program or create a new one that better supports the needs of boards and committees.
Again, I think it's a great idea, whether it's a goal or just something we do is up for discussion, but.
I'm with you on that. Again, I don't want to be, I don't dislike the goal. I don't dislike the initiative of your initiative. But I also don't think it rises to the level of a goal, as a yearly goal. I think we should engage. I mean, I think community engagement at every level should be encouraged and really be part of the process of all the boards and commissions and committees, because I never like to exclude anybody. I got to come up with a word that covers all of them.
Everybody.
Everything, yes.
So without
Theory of everything.
Without it being a goal, is there majority support for looking into this as a side issue?
I think we can reach out to the programs that already exist, but I think it has to come from the school and the educators that they're seeking this to be in their curriculum. Their curriculums are heavily set and they have a lot of constraints that they work under. So even if we have something we wish they could be doing, and I know that the program already exists, and I know of a lot of different projects people have worked on. So I feel like just maybe reaching out and letting them know we're available or interested. But at the same time, I don't know exactly what we could do to set up a program that we don't have any jurisdiction over their curriculum or time.
Well, I don't know that he's talking about a curriculum. I guess I need to know, fleshing out what you're looking to achieve, what kind of involvement.
I think the idea is that we put together kind of a needs list and say, you know, this committee could use, you know, someone who can help type notes, and this commission could use X, Y, and Z, and this town office could use X, Y, and Z. And then we take this, and then we kind of, you know, present this to the school and say, hey, these are things that we could use help with already existing programs. And again, Ms. Full and I have already had a preliminary conversation on this, I believe it was last year, to see what is next. And that was the next step that she was looking for from us. However, you know, it hasn't happened. So it would be taking that initiative from this level and saying, you know, we're going to look into this, and that way we can work with them. Now, as part of curriculum, no, I wouldn't say it's a curriculum thing. I'd say it's just, you know, there already are, with National Honor Society, with different groups in junior and senior year, there already are opportunities where students are expected to offer community service. And this would really be providing an opportunity for the students to give that community service to their local government. So that's all that I'm asking. I don't think that as far as, you know, specifics of trying to have some program coordinator, or I'm not by any means looking into that. I think it's just an initiative to see how we can bring students, if at all, into the support.
If we can match needs for the town on different municipal bodies and match them with volunteers from the school, volunteers from anywhere, I'm all for it.
I mean, it's a little bit like the senior tax work-off program. You know, we've got 12 positions identified that boards and committees have said they could use help with, and 6 of those are currently being filled, and the seniors, you know, get a rebate on their taxes as a result. So we have a committee that handles that. So I think it would be a difficult thing for the Board of Selectmen to fit in. I think you'd need sort of like the tax work-off program, you'd need a little committee to take care of it, I think.
Well, I think go ahead.
Sorry, I participated, Mrs. Foyle invited myself, the superintendent, the school resource officer, to discuss with that community service learning class the needs of the community. So we had just general discussions at that meeting about what challenges we were currently facing. The students formed their own projects and developed those. So got a lot of great feedback. One of those projects was about therapy.
Old Homes Week. Oh, okay. No, I know there was somebody who wanted to work on an Old Homes Week.
Yes.
Like a
Yep.
town fair.
And that's one of the presentations. They had a presentation at the end of the year. That's one of the presentations that I went to. And talked to them about, that's something the Business Association has talked a lot about. It's kind of a community event that we can, the businesses can set up tables at and be a community event as well. So there's overlap in different, young and business community. So out of that, I reached out to department heads as well for their needs. The senior center talked about a device day, having students come in and work with seniors on a device day, how to use their devices. So that was passed along to them as well. So it's those bringing the different constituents and students and learning from we had talked about this. That's on the same
I didn't realize that
thread.
she kind of took it off and kept going with it, because we had talked about that, I know, like a year and a half ago.
Well, it always existed in the form of that class.
Yes.
I'm familiar
Yeah.
with a lot of different things that class has done, and one group was working on a pharmacy issue and utilized me, and I interviewed with them, and I think a good point is that it's sourced from the kids.
Right.
And I think that's one of the difficult things here, is that they are kids or minors, and it's got to come from the education. I don't know how much we can do or ask for. I mean, to say, oh, I need your children to come take minutes.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Right, well, I mean, I think it's an offer.
But I
We're not
think
going to dictate anything, but if somebody's
Making
interested,
people aware.
yeah.
that-
I guess trying to match people who may be interested in that with things they could do, because certainly the students aren't going to have, very few students will have the wherewithal to really push, hey, I want to do this. But if somebody says in some kind of listing, hey, this committee would love you to do this, or, PAC would like some additional help and volunteers, and people can look at the list and say, no, I'm interested in that. They wouldn't necessarily seek it out, but now that it's in front of them, they may
I
actually
guess I
choose
just
it.
see a difficult overlap in the concept, especially based on meeting times. I can't have any of my children in high school at a planning board meeting till 11 PM. Or, I guess I'm having a hard time conceptualizing, beyond something sourcing from them that fits their needs. Our needs for help at our meetings and stuff, I don't think can be met by children.
maybe not.
No.
I
think
certainly, I think it'd be awesome to have the engagement, but right now,
Yeah.
I don't know if I
But we have Elaine who types our notes, right? And
Well,
she's not here for me.
Yeah, not everything is.
Yeah, not everything has to
Something's
be
happened during the day,
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's someone who could, type on a Saturday or Sunday when they have some free time, go on YouTube and, help out. I think there's a lot of opportunity here besides, kids can't be out past 10 PM anyway, doing anything, some quasi work related. And I don't think I'm saying that there should be kids here.
So I'm for it if you want to, define it more and then engage with other bodies in town and say, hey, listen, do you have any needs of items that could be done by
And
students?
it sounds like a lot of that
Right.
is happening.
And we can continue
Can
to
just have
do
the
that.
dialogue and.
Exactly.
So no goal,
So no
continued
goal.
process, there you go. I like
Continue
it.
process.
And we always talk about with the school as well, is where can we collaborate on? So it's, identifying, if we have certain needs, maybe they can assist in a certain way and vice versa. So I think and overall, I think it's a great thing to create more engagement with students.
Right.
Because
Younger
when-
people in general, if we can, we can get them to be more involved. I think there's a level of civic engagement at a younger level that just, maybe it never existed. Maybe I'm, looking at those rose-colored glasses from the good old days, but you know, it would be nice to try to get somebody engaged. I don't think civics and I don't think government is such a horrible thing. I think some people are really interested in it. And if we can find them a way to get engaged, to show them how the process works, it'd be really helpful.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I think it starts with us setting the tone of respect, you know, because this past town meeting was certainly a turnoff. And I think several meetings of this board have been questionable.
Town meeting was a turnoff?
No, in terms of sometimes you get a little bit, sometimes it gets a little too emotive. And I think that for someone who's learning, who doesn't know, that it can be intimidating, you know, and they may not.
Okay, that, I agree with that.
See
It
their
can be
opportunity
intimidating.
to either provide input or, you know, it can be overwhelming.
And I used to give a talk. I was asked by a former teacher at LHS who taught civics to give a talk, and I'd always give a talk in this room to her class. I did it for 5 semesters, I think.
Was it Mrs. Whitney?
Mrs. McCullough.
Okay.
Sharon McCullough, yeah. So, one of the things I would involve them to tell the students how the whole town government is structured and what the bodies are and everything. But when it got down to participation in town meeting, I'm like, you know, if you're going to get involved in government in any regard, you got to get used to one thing, is that you're going to lose, right? You're going to lose things that are important to you, and then you got to go on and you go on to the next fight because you win those. So you don't lose everything and you don't win everything, and you just can't, you know, obviously you got to keep everything respectable and civil, but you know, some people just don't like the fact that they're very passionate about something and the majority goes against them, and then they just get a taste in their mouth and they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's hard, you know, because everybody faces that, believe me. So that was the thing I told the kids back then, and that's why.
It's very true.
Yeah, well, and I think that doesn't necessarily happen a lot. I mean, I don't know that people get faced with that a lot. That's my own feeling. Anyway, so we're going to do the reappointments. That's definitely a goal, and everybody's going to come back with no more than 3, and we're going to use the absolutely wonderful model that our town manager used in her goals to make something that's written well and achievable, so we can all discuss it, and we'll adopt a subset of them. There won't be 15, but they won't be just one, hopefully, either.
So it sounds like we have one
Unless somebody
goal.
is such a crystalline writer that their one goal dazzles us all, and you're like, that's the goal. That's the goal we're gonna do.
So it sounds like we have one goal generally, which is our buildings, and
Well, that's the topic, but that's not the goal, right?
and then what you're looking for from us is, you know, 3 kind of achievable goals for us to present at our next meeting.
That presumably represent your highest priorities, so that we can have a starting place.
Okay.
And how long do people need to do that? Can that be done by next meeting?
Yeah, I think it's got to be.
All right. So we're gonna be
So we'll
doing
add that to the agenda.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I am going to do my absolute best, depending on what happens between now and then, which has been very eventful, to keep public comment to under 20 minutes.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, again, it depends on what the
It's so
topics are.
hard, yeah,
It
because
is.
if people come here and they have something they need to
I hear you.
say, so that's
Yep.
a really difficult,
Yep. So,
But we also have public comments on the back end of the meetings.
which
yeah, which of course, nobody stays for, so, or very rarely.
We'll have to start early for public comment.
Right,
6:30
right.
to 7.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't like, I think that what Mrs. Adams said is true. I mean, people come here and I don't want to cut somebody off because it means something to them. Whatever motivated them to come here, I want to hear what they have to say, because I think cutting it off just makes that fester, and it gives people a bad taste, and it means people don't listen, and then you're really not
means
listening.
eventually they're
Like,
gonna
you're
run for
actually not-
selectmen
right,
because-
and then you're actually not listening. So at first they infer you're not listening, and then when you actually shut them off, then you actually are not listening, and that's not good, and that's not
people
something.
feel like their
I'm interested in.
voice isn't heard, there's nothing more dissatisfying.
Right.
So
So-
I think it's
It is true,
impossible.
but people do say the same thing.
Well,
Over
again,
and over and over.
nobody tonight said the same thing. They did, you know, they were all on their own topic, and I think, I just hope, we've had 2 big events happen that have caused a large amount of public comment, so. Upcoming meetings, we have warrants here, but upcoming meetings, so I think everybody, from what I saw, there's 2 people, you're gonna be away July 4th, you're gonna be away July 4th.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, because of the holiday week, maybe we should just cancel July 2nd as a meeting.
I feel good about that.
Yeah? Are we okay with that?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to celebrate Independence
that
Day
for
by being
America.
independent for that day. There we go. All right, so there'll be no July 2nd meeting. So we'll have a meeting next week, and then the next meeting will be July 9th.
And I just want to confirm that we're not looking at adding a third meeting in July. Since we're taking off the 2nd, then we're not going to go later in the month and add another meeting.
So
just two
We're
meetings.
still going to have 3 meetings. We're going to have July 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd.
Okay.
Because the 30th will be the last
Got it.
Tuesday.
Okay.
And the 23rd, I think I'm flying out that day, so you may get your big day. Debut.
Oh, boy.
Your debut.
And if you're flying out.
All right, so we have warrants here. What do we got? We don't have minutes or anything, it's just
I may have a conflict that day.
warrants. Accounts payable, $389,241.26.
Don't forget the cents.
Nope. Okay, hold on. And payroll deductions, $570,362.26. And followed closely on its heels by payroll, $918,137.96. We have minutes of March 19th. So I was not here, so there you go.
Vote to approve the minutes.
Yes, vote to approve the minutes of March, well, I can't yet, because I don't, oh yeah, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 9th.
So moved.
What is it, March 19th? 19th. 2000.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain because I wasn't here. Action file issues?
Just one ongoing thing that I'd like to bring up, any updates on hearing from the state about the intersection?
No.
With
None
the
since the
arrows?
last meeting.
Okay.
Committee reports, I don't know if anybody has any or they want to give one.
I intend on going to the Council of Aging meetings. However, because of training that I have scheduled in Boston, I won't be able to start that until end of July.
Now, is it my understanding that the Board of Selectmen liaisons were discontinued?
We do not officially liaise anymore.
We don't liaise? We are liaise-free?
That was a decision that was made, that there was not going to be any official representation at meetings, so that the report back wasn't biased and that everybody had the right to go out and either attend or watch. And
Is anybody interested in having that discussion again, or is everybody?
Yes, I am.
Is everybody, yes, you're interested in having it?
I'm interested in having a discussion because I don't think that we communicate with boards enough.
Okay,
I don't,
no?
I don't like the position of liaison.
Okay.
I don't like the idea
I
of
saw
liaison.
value in it when I was here, I would say as a citizen for the year that I sat, or maybe a little over a year. I didn't miss a single meeting, and I got a lot of useful information during the sort of committee reports of the liaison's perspective. And some people would say, oh, well, it's coming from somebody's opinion or whatnot. Well, we know that. I knew that when I was listening,
Sure.
but it's where I would sometimes become informed about another topic. And so I did see value in it, but it was not the popular opinion last year. But certainly a lot of us, like I know Phyllis does attend so many school committee meetings, and I may know where we don't agree, but with her coming back and telling us topics they're engaging in, it doesn't mean she's going to form my opinion, but it's going to make me aware of something that's really being worked on. So if we're currently highly engaged in following other things, I think there might be value in setting up.
Okay, so my question was, are you interested in discussing the topic or no?
I thought I was saying yes.
Okay. Okay.
I thought you were saying yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Well, a yes would have, I mean, again, I
Well, I guess I
understand.
just didn't finish my sentence again, so I guess we don't know what I was going to say.
And you gentlemen are not interested?
No. I mean, I will certainly attend meetings for the Council on Aging. However, I think it sets, my concern is only that, when you have a liaison assigned, then there almost becomes this expectation that a liaison will start attending the meetings. And I think there's a lot of value in watching the meetings from home, because it gives you a different perspective, and also it fits better into your life schedule. And I don't know, what Damon's schedule is, but I certainly know mine. And I know that I don't have a lot of availability during the week at night to attend other meetings.
So I'm going to say that we should put it on as a topic, because I think what you just described is not what the liaison program, for lack of a better word, was about. It's not about attending it. There are obviously lots of ways to doing it. You don't have to attend it, because there are a lot of them are publicized now. I mean, are broadcast or recorded on YouTube. So it's not about going, it's about that you as one person, obviously everybody on the board has the ability to look on YouTube at all the meetings they want. You could play them, dawn to dusk if you wanted.
But I think I've heard board members opine from other boards that, we have this liaison from the Board of Selectmen, and they've come to exactly 0 meetings. And I think that, to me, it just creates a tone in which other people just hear liaison.
And my disagreement with, or my dislike for the position is separate from the time issue. Sometimes the Board of Selectmen member can start to have a relationship as a de facto member of another elected board, and I don't like that.
Well, and I think,
I agree.
So that's it. I think that'll be a good part of the discussion.
Right.
Because I think it's, any program is successful or not by how you define it. And if people, I think that's exactly what it was designed not to do. Really, the board, before before almost all meetings were being broadcast and recorded, it was a way for the board to get information from one member. But that one member, and this will be part of the further discussion, was designed to be the fly on the wall and report back, not to engage the committee. You're not supposed to engage with them, and certainly not represent the board, because you don't.
And you can't.
Right, and you can't. That's exactly. So I think it was just getting information to say, do you know what's going on at such and such a committee? These are the hot issues. Because before those went on, we would hear about things that happened that were hotbed issues, but we would hear them so far down because the other board didn't let us know, or for whatever reason, and we were caught off guard. Whereas then you could report on what was happening at those meetings. And in fact, watching them from YouTube and not going to the meetings may even be beneficial. So then you can't engage. The point is not to engage. The point is just to report to the rest of the board what's going on and highlight the highlights.
It's highly complicated thinking of it, though, because, there may be times we're at things engaging as a citizen on topics, like I followed marijuana so closely, so I attended, so many planning board meetings. But I was there as a citizen and as a mom. If I had been the liaison, I don't know how you dissect that. Be like, I'm here, not as a, so it does become complicated, which I might lean more in the direction of maybe we just all
we can
head in the
discuss it at
direction.
least. So let's put it on the future. I mean, it doesn't have to be that early, but I thought it had benefit in the past, and if the majority of the board thinks it doesn't after the discussion, then we'll leave it the way it is. If they do, we can reinstate it.
Next meeting or future
No,
meeting?
it's future meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, let's put it in
All
like
right.
first meeting in August or something like that. We have enough, I don't want to front load all the meetings. believe me. All right, any public comment from the public who isn't here? So, any public comment from the board before we?
Yeah, we were kind of late last time, so I didn't make the public comment I wanted to make at the end. But I wanted to express my support for my fellow members of this board. That I really, we're going to disagree, and I think you can probably tell from my personality that I will fiercely vocalize my perspective. But at the end of this, I appreciate that we are 5 individuals with 5 different perspectives, and that my opinion is no more important than yours. I enjoyed the tone that we've had over the last couple of meetings. I hope that we maintain it.
I appreciate that.
You're here.
I think we want to keep things orderly and respectful throughout, so I will do my best as chair to make sure that that happens. But thank you. Any other comment? All right, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You better not be. Good night, everyone.
What do you do if three people oppose ending?
Majority vote to.
Well, if enough people